going into our afternoon session of hearings for our long-term plan. We've got 19 submitters coming in this afternoon. So our first three are submitting on the long-term plan policies. And I'd like to welcome David Wright up to the front desk. Yes, please. Yep, up you come. And if you would just like to turn your microphone on. Right hand side, yep, there you go. So just for councillors to know, this is on page 2 of the policies submission booklet. David, how we're working it is you've got 10 minutes all up, which is roughly about 5 minutes to speak, and then questions after that. Okay, right. Off you go. And we're being live streamed, so people can watch you at home.
Delightful. So thank you for this opportunity. You guys have obviously got a huge week ahead of you, so I'm thankful for that. Thank you for your patience, and you're certainly earning your stipend this week. As you've said, I'm speaking on the revenue and financing policy, specifically around the airfield. I am Secretary and Treasurer of the Aero Club and have a share in an aircraft that lives on the airfield in one of the hangars, so that's where my bias comes from. You've proposed, well the proposal has proposed, that the airfield should contribute 40 to 50% from fees and charges, and I think this is far too high. I'd argue that the community benefit from the airfield is far more than you guys have asserted, well not you guys, the plan has asserted, and it's reasonable to ask the community contribute more towards the airfield. The airfield is used by a lot of people, and a lot of people come along to the airfield to the regular events that are held there by the Aero Club, the museum, the aerobatics organisation. I suppose you'd put in the speedway there as well. This year alone, the Aero Club has hosted the Flying New Zealand Championships competitions. We had 150 people come from all over the country to attend this, and they stayed there for in Ashburton for 3 to 4 days, obviously contributing while they were here. We're soon to host, and I've got to get this right, the New Zealand Association of Women in Aviation's rally. It's the first time we've done this. There's 100 people coming in from all over the country again, and they'll stay for 2 to 3 days at the Royal Hotel Ashburton this time. They have their big prize dinner and so forth there. So along with all the people coming in, these competitions, these events attract a lot of people from the community who come in and just watch the planes coming in. There's a lot going on, and a lot of people enjoy just seeing this. We've hosted the Acrofest over the last couple of years, which again is a great spectator sport. That's the aerobatics thing. So that's, it's very entertaining. We've had the Warbirds, quite a bunch of the aircraft stop over on their way to Wanaka this year. So there's a bunch of old planes there that people came and saw. And what was particularly good was that the Yak team practiced their routines over Ashburton, and I think a lot of people got a kick out of that. And of course, there's just people who come and visit the airfield just to sit and watch. Enjoy the open space there. So it very much is a community asset and something that the community needs. The community also benefit, and I think it's probably everybody's pointed this out, and I think you yourselves have, that it is in the cases of emergencies, the airfield is a huge asset. If it's even when the bridges were out or something like that, when we need to get people over, or for emergency medical evacuations or whatever, the airfield's there to be used for that sort of thing. I think one thing that's really underrated on the airfield is the Aero Club's training organisation. Having young people stay in Ashburton and learn how to fly benefits everybody. These people learn to fly at competitive rates, because at the moment Ashburton is a reasonably competitive place to learn. And while they're here, they're contributing to the community and the economy, because they're all working while they learn. It's unlike going away to learn. So they and the big thing here is that they come out of that first part of their training with no student debt, and that's a big thing for the kids. Some will go on to the academies in Christchurch or Nelson or wherever to continue their training, to more professional training, but at least they've got a good chunk of their flying under their belts without any student debt. The other side, along with that, we have our instructors that come through. A lot of them actually come from Christchurch, but we've had them at times, they stay in Ashburton. But the big thing there is that these young instructors are here to build up their hours while they're earning money so that they can carry on to into the New Zealand or the big companies. They have to build up their hours. It's a funny old system. There's no other way of doing it. Well, there's other ways. There's one of the more common ways to do it is become an instructor and build your hours up until you're eligible for Air New Zealand. So we're contributing to the whole thing in that way. The other side of this returns when you're expecting your 40 to 50% is that you're putting everybody under a lot of pressure to earn money out of the airfield. And this pressure is inevitably as your staff are spending a lot of time trying to find ways to make money out of the airfield where the money just isn't there. And while they're trying to push for income there, they are creating animosity between the airfield users and their staff and the users. I think that you need to look at far more in a way that you look at the campgrounds, which is a bit further on in the same proposal here. And in there you've said, and the campgrounds have insufficient revenue. Insufficient revenue will be obtained through fees and charges, and it would be unfavourable to increase fees to such a level that activity could self-sustain. The general rate is therefore required to support them and maintain this activity. I think the airfield fits into that same area. It's a community good, and I don't think it could ever be seen to be self-sufficient. I think there's an opportunity, I've said in my submission, there's an opportunity here that maybe the airfield itself and the hangars could be seen as two different enterprises. The airfield is very much, in my opinion, a public good, whereas the hangars could be seen as maybe commercial because it is they're all owners and it's sort of owner-operated, whatever you like. But it must be realised that the hangars really are just a bunch of sheds on a bare paddock. There's no services. There's not a great deal. It's just a rental for a little piece of ground. So that's all I've got to say. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. We've just got a question from Councillor Wilson.
With respect to what level would you see the percentage as a fair rate? You said 40, 50. What would you see as a fair rate to you and the general ratepayer, obviously?
I would, just looking at what the income is now, I think from what I understand, all the income we're getting out of landing fees is about $12,000 or something like that. 25%, but I think you need to go back and see base it on what you're actually getting. Like you get your landing fees, and then you get your costs, which are the maintenance, the health and safety, and the CAA cost, which everybody resents. But if you work it out that way, I think 25% is probably reasonable. Yeah.
Other questions?
Yes.
And are there any other airfields which are under the reserve commercial sort of scenario like you've?
I think most small, particularly grass airfields, are under that same situation. I think if you look at, I had a quick look through at Alexandra. It's a far more sophisticated airfield. They have a huge chunk of council money go into that. Even Timaru, I think, is supported in a big part by the council. Yeah, and it has commercial flights go in there.
Question from Mayor Brown.
Yeah, thanks. The first submission then, David. Fuel tax or fuel levy on the fuel that gets pumped into the machines when they land and take away. Would that be a revenue source?
I don't know how that's done. I understand
It's not at the moment, no.
Yeah, I thought that Alexandra actually did that. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, just to put a few cents a litre on every bit that's pumped through there. I think that's
You
probably
know what the litres are that goes through, and then divide one by the other, and you come up with your cents per litre or dollars per litre.
Yeah, cents per litre sort of thing, and just to add a little bit on there.
And that is user pays. Then.
Yeah, then it becomes user pays. I think that's probably a good. I think it's a good concept.
And
yeah.
another concept which hasn't been flown anywhere is it costs a bit to run the airport because of council's overheads and our staff that are involved. Would the airport users run it themselves?
I think that's another idea. Yeah, at least the whole thing to the airport users. Yep.
The license to occupy or something, and
Yep.
you'd have to do all the compliance, you'd have to do everything.
Yep.
But then we wouldn't have a council cost in there, which is a reasonable.
I would be personally, and I think I'd have back. We would be open to looking at that. Yeah,
It's an option. I'm not.
It is an option.
I haven't
Yeah.
floated it anywhere else, but
I haven't. I've sort of gone around in my head too, and if several of us have talked about it, and I would be open to discussing to see what it would.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Last question from Councillor Mackle.
Thank you. David, thank you. You've spoken very well. My question is, on a voluntary basis, the airfield out there is kept to a very high standard. On a voluntary basis, how much of that work is done through your members against council's input?
It's all through our users. Yeah, we charge. I think we're getting $20,000 a year from the council employ us to do it. So yeah. So it's all through our members. Yeah.
Well done.
Yep. And they do. You're right. We put a lot more effort, and that's another argument. Probably haven't got time because what we charge, and we're not. Aero Club itself isn't paying landing fees at the moment, but we aren't charging a high rate for our maintenance either. So there's a bit of a quid pro quo, and we probably need to sit down and sort that out.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, David, for coming in and submitting. Appreciate it. Thank you. Next up, we have Mark on our page 13 is his submission to policies. Good afternoon, Mark. As I said before, we've got 10 minutes total, so 5 minutes roughly for your presentation, and then we'll take some questions. Thank you.
That you won't have to worry about, Liz. So, hello everybody, and yes, my name's Mark Howden, and I am submitting on the rates or the draft of the rates remission policy. So my submission was centred around the fact that when I looked through the draft rates remission policy, I had noted that there was no clause for rating units and common ownership. And for those that are not familiar to rating units and common ownership, it defines as if a ratepayer has 2 or more rating units that are owned by exactly the same owner, which are contiguous, which means a shared boundary, and are used jointly as a single unit, then they may qualify for contiguous rating. This means that the council would treat them as if they were one single rating unit. Now, this is a provision that is clearly set out in the Rating Act, to which all councils that I'm aware of do incorporate this into their rates remission policy. Now, the rates remission policy is reviewed every 3 years by the finance manager, and as far as I know, there's not been any remission included for rating units and common ownership for at least the last 6 years. I brought the subject up in council here over 18 months ago. So I just want to be clear that I'm not personally affected whether there is a rates for contiguous parcels of land in the rates remission policy or not, but I estimate there are quite a few people or ratepayers in this county who are affected. And partly because there hasn't been an inclusion for this in the rates remission policy, some people, inadvertently have been overpaying rates that they've been charged. So I'm just here to, ask whether, a consideration would be that to conform with other councils' policies that this clause be introduced into the proposed rates remission policy. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Mayor Brown.
Thanks, David. Could you just explain or just refresh me, what is that clause you would like added?
Sorry, I'm a bit deaf, Neil.
You said there's a clause you'd like added into our rates remission policy. What is that clause you'd like added?
Well, there was a clause included or added into the rates policy just a bit over a year ago, and that is exactly the clause that I read out to you, Neil. So prior to that, there was no nothing in the council on the council website allowing provision for this. So while I accept that there is a provision there now, certainly a bit over 18 months ago there was not, and there has not been. So effectively people, ratepayers, were not aware of such a policy. So it's this policy here, Neil, which...
So the clause is in there now, is that what
no, rating units in common ownership is not a remission in this county. It qualifies, or it is a remission in other authorities because it's written into their policy, but for some reason it hasn't been included into the Ashburton District Council rates remission policy. So
so that's what we need to discuss then in deliberations, the lack of that clause being in.
Well, it's up to the council whether they want to put it in there or not. I mean, frankly, it doesn't affect me, but there are definitely other ratepayers that this clause does affect, and I think to keep uniformity with the other councils, yes, I think it would be a good idea that that clause be included.
Okay, when we deliberate, we'll look at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you. Any other questions? No. All good. Thank you very much for coming in.
Great. Thanks, Liz.
Appreciate that. Thank you. We go now to, we have Matt from Haven Housing, and I don't know, have you got others that Jackie's there? Walter, come on up.
Bring the whole team.
Bring the whole team. Page 8 of our submission booklet. Thank you, and go ahead with your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Marshall from the Ashburton Housing and Support Trust. We are also known as Haven Housing. With me, we've got Trust Chair Jackie Gervin and Trustee Walter Vanderclay. What we're asking for is either a clarification of the current policy for rates remission for community and recreational facilities, including memorial and community halls, which includes charitable housing providers, or a new category of rates remission being created for charitable housing providers. Just by way of background, Haven Housing was established in 2018. We acquired 9 villas at the corner of Elizabeth and Grigg Streets, the former Cameron Courts. We've since developed on council land at the corner of Cass Street and Mona Square with 17 one-bedroom units. The issue is that the rates that we've been indicated will be for the coming rating year for that property will be in the region of $52,000, and that's for Mona Square alone. That's, I don't want to tell anyone how to suck eggs here, but rates are obviously a combination of the capital value of the property and the number of SUIPs, separately used or inhabited parts, and we're being rated with 17 SUIPs. There are a number of options. We could alter our design of future developments to include communal areas, which would involve additional fees for cleaning and maintenance in common areas, and frankly runs counter to our ethos of self-contained units as a means of quiet enjoyment and dignity for our tenants. We could pay the assessed rates, which would hinder our ability to fund future projects going forward. We could submit to you that the definition of SUIP be changed, but that could have wider implications. Or the course that we are taking here today, submit that the Council's rate remission policy be amended. In summary, we agree that we should pay rates. We have tenants that benefit from Council-provided resources, including water, sewer, rubbish collection, and all of the other amenities that the Council provides in the Ashburton District. We would like to ensure that charitable organisations such as ours are not deterred from undertaking future developments which would benefit the community. And we submit the way to achieve this is either via amending the existing rates remission policy so that we neatly fit within there, or creating a new category of eligibility for rates remission.
Thank you. Would Jackie or Walter, anything else to add? No, we'll take some questions. Any questions? Mayor Brown.
Yeah, thanks for your submission, Matt. You'd know about the rates rebate scheme that the government has for low-income residents who can, it's up to $700 per year. Do you apply for them?
They're not eligible.
You'll need to put your light on, please, Jackie. Thank you. The other side.
Sorry?
That one there. There you go. Good.
Because they're paying rent, they're not entitled to apply for the rates rebate. The only people that can apply to that are people that own their own home or in a retirement village where they're paying a right to occupy. So our tenants cannot apply for that.
Yeah, I was thinking of the retirement village where they do get it, and you're probably 100% correct, the right to occupy. So unless you structured it differently, I don't know if you can or not, but I understand now. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Anything final you'd like to add? No. Great. We've all, yes, got the submission in front of us, so we'll take that into deliberations next week. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a little gap, and it's been filled very well. Thank you.
You
Ian,
haven't got much of a gap.
just allow us a few minutes to go and find the submission, which is on page 558 in booklet 2, and it's under Peter's name. Is that correct? 558. Sorry, I'm just taking that lead. There we go. Right, everyone. Page 558, booklet 2. And it's on behalf of Peter Scott from ECAN. Ian, floor is yours. You've got 5 or so minutes to present, and then we've got about 5 minutes for questions.
There's not a lot of detail in the submission, and so I'm going to intend to take it as read and just note the irony that we're now telling you to look for the environmental and biodiversity values in the water races, having told you to shut them all down. And in terms of your water services infrastructure, especially stormwater and especially wastewater and stormwater infrastructure, just note the implications of the appeal to the Ashburton Lyndhurst decision and the government's reaction to that, because there may be implications for your the Ocean View farm down near Hackatree.
Thank you. We'll take questions. Councillor Wilson.
I note that they've mentioned in here about the where we emphasise the need to ensure that your actively closure program provides protection for natural watercourses, including those that are spring fed. Are they all clearly mapped? And because that's part of the discussion we're having. Are they all mapped together so that when we try and do it, we can see what ECAN's classes as all these streams and spring fed ones?
I think the reference to the spring fed one. Well, I mean the spring fed ones are mapped as regional council drains, and that's most of those in this district are tied up with Ashburton Heights Drainage District. I think the reference to that is that quite a lot of your water races used to tail off into the drains, into the spring fed drains, and without that water from the stockwater race system, a lot of those drains spend more time dry than they do flowing these days, and the loss of biodiversity as a result.
Another question.
But they are all mapped. Yeah,
It's one I've asked everybody sort of. is ECAN willing to work proactively with us on this, not obstruct the will of the community to do it?
In terms of the stock water?
Stock water closures, which, that implants us to the need for fish screens and all that sort of stuff, and the water that's used for other purposes, and trying to enhance our environment through the repurposing of the stock water.
I can't answer that, Richard, because unfortunately I don't control things at the regional council. I'd like to say yes, but I know when I was getting briefed on this, I noted to our staff that one of the reasons why the district council was potentially pulling out of their stock water exposure was because of the liabilities of things like fish screens, and they sort of looked slightly alarmed, I think. But I will certainly lobby the regional council to make sure that they do work with you proactively, but I can't promise that, unfortunately.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Hi, Ian. We just had Federated Farmers saying to us that 3 years is too quick to exit. They would prefer 10 years. What's your thoughts and ECAN's thoughts on that?
I think as far as the Environment Canterbury is concerned, they have no position on that. That's entirely up to the district council. The regional council had an interest in trying to return water to the Ashburton River so that the Ashburton River plan fulfilled its obligations in terms of minimum flows and keeping the mouth open. And I think the observation is that returning stock water to the Ashburton River hasn't had the effect that the river management plan modelled it should have had. So there's a deficiency there in terms of flows in the Ashburton River, which is affecting the people of this district. We've got no position as to who controls and manages the stock water race. It's just that there are some values there which need to be thought about. Up to you, Phil.
Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Ian. If we exit the water race system and over a period of time, fish screens does become a problem for us because we're behind in putting them on now when the consent says we should have them on. So we'd obviously need more leeway because some races may not need fish screens because they may not be there in the future while we look to exit. And we did have a submitter say to us about the fish exclusion devices that are in there. And what are they trying to do? What are they trying to do? Are they keeping salmon out, which probably is what out and keep them in the river, not in the races, which is a fair comment. And some of these races we have, which need to rivers we need to put fish screens on, don't have salmon in them because they're smaller. So why are we putting the fish exclusion device on? And a lot of the native fishes like to enter and leave from the top or the bottom of the races. So I think we need to probably work closer with you on the need for these devices. I personally would welcome submissions from the district council as to whether in fact fish screens should be required in all circumstances, because at a personal level it seems a nonsense if in fact that the reason why you're keeping a water race or a creek alive is because of its biodiversity values, and yet you have to have a fish screen between it and the main source of the water. It takes a bit of thought as to why that should be the case. But the regional council, I think, has its policy, and so if you need to change that policy, you need to put a case to it to the regional council. And you're doing that regional policy statement now, so that would be our time to engage is when that comes out for submissions.
Yeah, I haven't seen any reference to fish screens in the RPS, but in the draft RPS, which
we could highlight it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
I've read that ECAN is willing to partner with us and all the lovely talk and that. I'd just like to put a plug in for how this district is underrepresented at the ECAN table at the moment, and I see that you're working towards perhaps alleviating that, but of the options there was none that really ticked our underrepresentation spot.
Yeah, in terms of representation, you're allowed with, it's based on numbers, you're allowed some leeway, but the projections for population change looks like South Canterbury will have half the numbers of people than most of the other constituents. So it looks like the constituencies are going to be, or the wards are going to be up in the area of 110 to 120,000, and there's only 65,000 people in South Canterbury. And so at some stage I think it's going to be inevitable that then Ashburton will probably be merged with South Canterbury to get that $100,000 number, 100,000 people number, and so on will be 100,000 people in its own right. I think, and my view is that, and that's the view I've expressed to the regional council, is that we have perhaps a more of a cultural relationship in terms of attitude to stuff with South Canterbury than we do necessarily with Greater Christchurch and perhaps Ralston. And so at some stage, and hopefully it's later rather than sooner, that is probably what the change is going to have to look like.
Thank you. Councillor Mackle.
Thank you. Ian, I was wondering, council owns, I believe, well, on the understanding, a consent to take for stock water. If that stock water was, the system was closed, could we use that consent to put it into the Ashburton River and then take it out at Lake Hood to help with the problem down there of water flow?
I think there's a better solution for Lake Hood, and I was going to touch on it when I finished talking about our submission to you guys, and reflect perhaps on your submission to us, and that is that we've talked to we've arranged meetings with our senior executive leadership team to talk about whether in fact the best pathway to enable the Ashburton River to go back through the lake is a non-consumptive take, and whether in fact that even needs any consents.
At the moment, ECAN, I believe, is restricting
because
Lake Hood taking water. If it was put in there from the scheme with that consent,
yeah.
why could it not be taken and put into Lake Hood?
So the Ashburton River, so the consents for Lake Hood at the moment are considered a take consent, a consumptive take. Now, it's not a consumptive take because the water goes back into the river anyway, and there's only 2 kilometres of the river is dewatered to a small degree while that's happening. And so whether in fact Lake Hood should ever have been included in the minimum flow regime in the Ashburton River plan is a question, and I think if we can get agreement from the regional council that it shouldn't have been considered a consumptive take, that it's a non-consumptive take, then it shouldn't necessarily be caught up in the new Ashburton River plan and therefore the minimum flow regime. So that's what we're working on, is to recognise it as a non-consumptive take. The other thing to consider is that the regional council, in submissions to central government for RMA changes, is recognising, wants the central government to recognise the definition of a river is effectively its wider floodplain, and by that definition Lake Hood would sit as part of the Ashburton River and not a outside the river berms. And so if it's part of the river system, then it's just a big wetland backwater of part of the Ashburton River. So having the Ashburton River flowing through an existing wetland in the river doesn't seem to be doesn't seem to be a major issue in terms of consenting permissions. So we're working on these opportunities. So Rob, repurposing stock water might be an option, but hopefully we've got better options.
Yeah, council has a significant asset there that we could utilise.
Yeah, I get the question. I think what we're trying to do is find a solution which wouldn't need that. But what I think it does need is your council to keep the pressure on the regional council to consider the options, consider a solution.
Thank you. Any further questions? We have gone over our 10 minutes, but we have got a wee bit of time up our sleeve, so if there are any questions, that's fine. No, otherwise, thank you very much, Ian, for taking the time to come in.
That's right. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Took longer to get changed than it did to come in.
We're glad you did. Our next presenter is coming in via Microsoft Teams, so but not for another couple of minutes. So ready to go? Okay, that's great. So we're looking at Volume 2, page 863. So we'll go to that, and then we will get Simon on. Simon will. Good afternoon, Simon. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful, thank you. We can't see you, but we can definitely hear you. Ah, there you go. Look at that. Magic. We've got your submission in front of us. We've all read it. You've got about 5 minutes or so for a presentation, and then we've got another sort of 5 minutes for questions. So, welcome to start with your presentation.
Excellent, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, elected members, for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. Apollo Projects is a specialist design and build construction company that has extensive experience delivering community, sports, recreation and aquatic facilities to local authorities throughout New Zealand. We've reviewed the Ashburton District Council's draft LTP and the associated consultation document, and have made our written submission, which it sounds like you've all received and reviewed, on the basis noting that there are several community facilities as future projects listed in the document. The key intent of our submission has been to relate our knowledge and experience in the delivery of vertical infrastructure projects for councils to ensure that the knowledge, the delivery model, that the council has the knowledge, the delivery model and the confidence to proceed with these important community projects. Given Apollo's extensive involvement and observation of other council projects throughout New Zealand, we've built a really strong understanding of some of the factors that are better likely to create success for these sorts of projects. 3 of these are developing realistic budgets at the outset. Too often these projects can have unrealistically high budgets that mean that either they get pushed back in their planning or that in some instances they don't happen at all. Design and build is a great model of engagement to limit risk and also achieve a target outcome for delivering a project. And the other thing which is quite possibly quite relevant in terms of Ashburton and the EA networks, potential EA networks extension, is that often the utilisation predictions are conservative, and the new facilities when they open have far greater patronage than expected. I don't have anything else to add at this point, so I'd like to take the opportunity to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that. I'll go to councillors. Any questions? Councillor Wilson.
Obviously, we went out for our new potential expansion of the EA Centre, the 3 courts, and we had a number of, with a 2 in front of it. Do you see that as realistic, or because obviously you've got down here? I was lucky enough to go to the Christchurch netball courts. Was 10 courts, and you got 15 million for that, and we're talking at 3. So people would do the maths and would couldn't understand the difference. Can you perhaps talk us through some of that difference?
Without comparing exactly apples for apples, it's quite hard to really nail it down. But I think what we see in a lot of instances is that by the time you start with a consultant's design, then get a quantity surveyor to do an estimate, and then add in some contingencies and various other things with the hindsight of some horror projects that have gone on in recent years, it really just results in being overly conservative. For the Christchurch Netball Centre, they originally had a budget of about $15 million for 8 courts, and they came out for a design and build tender, and we worked out that we could deliver 10 courts for that budget. And so the real advantage in that model is to go out and is to understand how much money you can afford, get a general idea with some realistic construction input as to the validity of that budget in relation to the scope that you want, and then let the design build market deliver on it.
Thank you. I've got a question from councillor Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're obviously having a debate at the moment regarding Balmoral Hall, whether to spend money on it or demolish it or whatever. When I read your report here, you don't give me too much confidence to to upgrade it because of obviously unknown factors that you may call it. So that's still the way to go in your mind, or what thoughts do you have?
That would be the safe recommendation. When it comes to strengthening and upgrading, again, it's probably very project specific. But if you don't, and obviously that comes down to the original design, the construction materials and techniques of the original building. But often the experience that we've had is that when you get into refurbishing or strengthening existing buildings, that you regularly spend the same amount of money, and in some instances you can end up spending more, and then you often end up with a compromised result because you've tried to keep an existing layout or an existing structure. And so if there's no overwhelming reason to keep the building from its significance point of view, then there's a huge advantage to being able to start with a clean slate.
Thank you. I've got another question from councillor Wilson.
With the slowdown in the economy, I see Fletcher Buildings collapsing in a screaming heap by the look of it. Is that going to mean we're going to get some really cheap building purchases coming soon, or is inflation too embedded and we're stuffed as it was?
We're certainly seeing some construction materials and trades certainly reducing from the highs that they were at a year and a half or so ago, and it's certainly resulting in some cost surety. One of the problems that was going on was the lack of availability of resource and labour was meaning that people were pricing in the risk of that and the scarcity. But now we have a pretty free and open supply of labour and materials. And so we're getting a lot more certainty in the delivery, but also there's some reductions in things like structural steel pricing that are certainly ahead of the market on projects that we're pricing at the moment. And generally it's materials that have come from overseas. New Zealand local materials and things haven't reduced a huge amount, so concrete and things like that haven't significantly reduced.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. Regarding an outdoor pool, do you see, I mean, with what you see around Canterbury, I presume, how popular are outdoor pools compared to the indoor model?
Yeah, so they're very popular on a nice hot sunny day, and if you go down to a Lido or an outdoor splash pad or something in a urban environment on a beautiful hot summer's day, they're generally absolutely heaving with people. But in reality, that may be only 10, 20 days of a year. With an indoor facility, they can be utilised every single day of the year. And that also means that you can get regular and reliable revenue from swim lessons or other use of the pool that people can, plan their businesses on. So it's certainly a great asset from a community enjoyment point of view, but at the same time, in terms of a business return on investment, you'll find that an indoor facility will be much more reliable and likely to return.
Thank you.
Efficiently.
And just a question on, so in our consultation we've talked about putting a dance studio into the EA Network Centre. Do you think a dance studio should be sort of a standalone, in a standalone building? Have you seen any others where they've been incorporated into a stadium sort of swimming pool complex, and does it work?
One of the really important things to understand about community sports facilities is that they need to cater for a significantly broad range of activities, sports and other uses. We've done the Selwyn Event Centre in Rolleston, which has very wide range of uses and multi-purpose spaces, and we're just about to start the full design of Waitaki Event Centre in Oamaru, which has, among other things, a built on what was originally scoped as a indoor cricket training space, but we've actually developed that into a fully multi-use space for a variety of activities: rock climbing, archery, indoor cricket training, marshalling for events and various things like that. So the best option for something like a dance facility, if it's not going to be able to be a fully justifiable return on investment for the space, is to try and create some sort of multi-use way to have the space. So you can have aerobics classes in it at different times. You can use it as the marshalling space for sports events and various other things to actually really generate the value out of that space.
Great, thank you. Appreciate your submission. There's no further questions, so thank you very much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you, Worship. Thank you, councillors.
I'll take it. So our next submitter was supposed to be Jane Thomas. Is she coming in? No, she's not. Okay. So, Owen, are you happy to come in a wee bit earlier? Oh, wonderful, thank you. So Owen's submission on behalf of the Ashburton Aviation Museum is in our booklet 2 on page 500. Thank you, Owen. So you've got about 5 minutes-ish to speak, and then we'll take a few questions after that, and it has been live streamed as well.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr Mayor, councillors and council staff. My name is Owen Moore and I'm representing the Ashburton Aviation Museum. I know many of you visited the museum for the Business Awards, and I would hope that some may have visited to see it as a museum. I won't embarrass any of you by asking, but if you haven't, you should. First of all, excuse me, a bit of background on the museum. 50 years ago, this year, the very first meeting of the Ashburton Aviation Museum was held in the Ashburton Library. And now the Ashburton Aviation Museum is one of the premier tourism attractions in the area, and the increase in our visitor numbers over the last few years is testament to what we're doing out there. Our very first aircraft was our Harvard. This was tendered for and we took delivery at Wigram. The wings were removed and put on a trailer, and the rest was towed home down the main road. Imagine trying to do that now. The museum has some amazing displays, some of which are unique. We have the only GR3 Harrier jump jet in the Southern Hemisphere, and our one saw service in a peacekeeping role down at the Falklands during the Falkland War in 1982. We have a Gloucester Meteor. These are recognised as being the first jet aircraft to operate in New Zealand. We're also recognised as having a representation of every jet fighter/trainer that the New Zealand Air Force has had in its fleet. And as well as our large displays, we have a large number of memorabilia and small items, some of which is on display, while some of it is in storage in our archives. We have the most aircraft on display, around 40, of any aircraft museum in New Zealand, and we are recognised as being a world-class aviation museum. The museum currently has 400 members from all over the world. At the moment, we are running our school program, where over a period of 2 weeks, we have every student from Ashburton Intermediate visit the museum for a morning. We have 6 learning stations set up around the hangar, where the students learn about things like maps and navigation, aircraft engines, flight controls, weather, electrical, effective drag on flight, and other things to do with the principles of flight. And we do this at no cost to the school. If you have read my submission, you'll realise we have the largest function space in Ashburton, and we have been making good use of that space in this last year. As some of you will realise, we hosted the ADC ANZ Business Awards, a function that showcased the amazing businesses that we have in the area. The museum was the winner in the tourism category and runner-up in the not-for-profit category in Methven 2 years ago, which raised our profile immensely. We've also recently allowed the Dear Effie Ball to be held in our hangar to raise, as the community supported the Dear Effie Charitable Trust in their endeavours to raise funds for their charity. Preparing for large functions is a big job, and there is always the risk of damage to exhibits when aircraft are being moved around in close proximity. So as you may know, the museum is in the process of adding to its display space with a new display hangar and reception area. This building will turn the museum into a complex. Once inside, I'm not good at following my place in here. Once inside, I've lost myself. Once inside, all displays and hangars will be accessible without having to go outside into the cold weather. It will have a purpose-built area that will be a small item display area, but can also be used as a function centre, making it a lot less work for museum staff when preparing for a function. This space will also be available for community groups looking for meeting space. The additions will increase our display space by 2,000 square metres. This will allow us to display our aircraft in a much more friendly way. We do have aircraft in storage awaiting this new display space. We do have a concern that the ADC, in its pursuit of making the airport operate at no cost to the ratepayers, could see the museum as a cash cow and up the rent and rates to levels that make the museum unsustainable. We are seeing this type of activity from ADC at the moment with our small hangar at the airport, which is a storage hangar, receiving a rental increase of over 75%. We note that we are a comparable operation with the Hokitika Heritage Museum, where they operate on the Hokitika airfield but pay no rates or rent, and in fact their council is very proactive and supportive of that museum. The Ashburton Aviation Museum is up for a rent review, and we would have liked to have seen it before this point, but for some reason, known only to ADC, we have not seen it as yet. This sort of activity from ADC does nothing to foster good relationships. In recognition of what we do for the community, we would like to see the council absorb our land rental and rates, or if that is not possible, at least limit these increases to the cost of living index. We would like to see this locked into the long-term plan, so we have some certainty that the Ashburton Aviation Museum will be around for future generations to enjoy. Thank you for the chance to address you all, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. There's a glass of water there if you need it too.
I'm recovering.
Any questions, councillors? Mayor Brown.
Thanks for your presentation, Owen. The rates you pay at the moment, are they normal rates or are they community rates?
No, they are a very. We do get our rates and rent at a reasonable. Well, rates I'm not so sure on, but our rental is at a very good rate, a very good amount.
But that's being reviewed at the moment.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? No, it doesn't. Oh, yes, we have one coming in. Councillor Todd.
Thought I might as well. You mentioned obviously insurances.
Yes.
What's the cost of insurance for the two hangars you've got there now?
About 13,000 plus GST.
Okay. And then when you build your third one, so it's going to be...
It will be quite a bit more. Yes, it will.
Quite extensive, yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
To do with perhaps the operation of the museum, I see you here and you said you've got 400 members. Is it a strong committee or, how does that
it is a strong committee and it's a strong local base that do all the work. And winter time, they're a little bit less, but Wednesdays and Saturdays are what we call workshop days. They start with a coffee and counselling at 10 o'clock, and then numbers will stay at a reasonable number till lunchtime, and then after lunchtime. So we can get, on a good day, we can get 25, 30 people there in the morning. But then as the day goes on, some people go home, and it can be left to a base of 10 or 11 people that are there in the afternoon, but it just depends what's happening. But we are reasonably, and we are very well supported by our members.
Thank you, Councillor Mackle. Question?
Thank you, Owen. The build-up of aircraft that you have in the museum, have they been sourced by your members alone?
Pretty much. Yep. We own everything in the museum. There's nothing on loan, because that just turns to, you can probably all understand, that turns into trouble.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, and I've just got a question. How many events roughly do you hold there a year? Or is it just sort of started to gain?
We do lots of average size events, but we only do sort of 3 or 4 maybe of the big events, and probably only 1 to the size of the District Council Business Awards. But we do probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 of the big events in the big hangar, but we have lots of groups that come and we do 50, 60, 70, and we do that in the smaller hangar. We do quite a number of those.
And so you'd rely solely on volunteers to help with those bigger events?
Everybody gets paid the same amount out there. Yep, nothing.
Right. Lovely, thank you. I think that's all for questions. Yes, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Now, next we have Colin, who's coming in via MS Teams, but not until 2:10. Femke, have we got a change of...
No, we can see if it's all looking at there yet, so we can see.
Not yet. And we've got this information here that's been handed around, which is part of Colin's submission. He's just arrived in here now. Thank you. That's all good. Hello, Colin. How are you? I'm Liz.
Good.
I'm chairing this part of the hearings at the moment. We can see you, and hopefully you can see us. We've received your booklet, I'll call it. So your print off here, is that what you're going to show us on screen?
Correct. I think Femke is going to push the slide buttons. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're running a wee bit ahead of time, but we're sort of about 5 to 10 minutes total, and that includes your presentation, and then we'll go for some questions. So you're welcome to start now and go through your presentation.
Okay. Yes, I can see the screen on your wall there.
Yep.
So it's really a response to the proposition that water races across the Ashburton district might be decommissioned and got rid of, and I understand the commercial reasons why that might be the case, but I think it's important to understand the consequences of that to biodiversity, to nature, to clean green images and so on. So it's quite pictorial to kind of just remind people of what's at stake here. So the next slide just has a few pictures showing some of these typical water races that have a lot of plants and animals in them. In some cases some quite rare things like the freshwater crayfish here, the kura. And the same kind of argument applies also to rare remnant vegetation and uncultivated soils on roadsides, where you've got bushes and tussocks and things, which are part of the original pristine environment, even though they're highly degraded. And these are kind of often the last touchstone of any natural remnant across the Canterbury Plains, so they are extremely precious. Have the next slide, please. So the conservation imperatives always are to protect anything that's left of our natural nature, even if it's degraded, and most of what is left on the Canterbury Plains is highly degraded, but still it's all that we've got to protect our natural and cultural heritage. And we've got so little left, the relatively small amounts of money that might be at stake here, have to be put in the context of the huge significance of our taonga, of our treasures, of our special unique flora, and ultimately even to the commercial consequences of that in terms of our clean green image and our marketing, etc., of our products. So it's very important also to ensure visibility of nature for local identity, sense of place, overcoming the extinction of experience, loss of ecological integrity, natural character, ecological literacy, and legitimate product marketing. So next, please. So you might sort of say, well, how can we say these are heritage and natural features when they were in fact constructed? Well, first, they were constructed nearly 150 years ago, so qualifies heritage features that one is technically not permitted to purposefully destroy. Secondly, they have over the ensuing years captured through natural dispersal and establishment many of the wetland and riparian species that were otherwise subsequently eliminated from the plains, due to development. And that includes, plants, as well as birds, lizards, fish, shellfish, and vertebrates. They are therefore natural wetland riparian habitats. That is, they weren't planted, they were naturally colonised. And wetlands, by definition, have quite a cyclical kind of existence. They're not like ancient forests that have been there thousands of years untouched. And again, we're not technically permitted legally to destroy such features. Now, I've been advocating for these critical natural features for decades, literally, to councils and ECAN and so on in the past. Anyway, the next few slides, which are going to just whip through, give you a sense of what is at stake, the species, the 300 species from 1,000 observations reported on iNaturalist and stock water across the plains. So if I can just see those, slowly revolved through, you get a sense of what we're talking about. Yep, the next one, and where those records are from. There's not so many from Ashburton, but the same applies pretty much uniformly across the plains where these water races are. But you can see there's a lot of plants and animals. I can see an orchid there, some ferns, and various herbs and rushes and sedges and such like. And so it goes on. As I said, there's about 300 different species of plants and animals and fungi that are reported there. So if we move on then to the next sort of slide with words on it, it's a comment about biodiversity, biosecurity and management. So out of the 236 species counted in the little sample, 112 are native plants and fungi, a number of which are locally rare or endangered. There are 24 native wildlife, fish, birds, shellfish, snails and vertebrates. And on the minus side, there's 29 invasive pest species which desperately need management. Now, we've often sort of regarded these water races as a bit of, not that important. And I just sort of noticed some comments here from some records on iNaturalist of an eel that was sort of scooped up during maintenance of water races along with a whole lot of plants, left to die, but it was because it had been raining, it was surviving and was probably going to slither back into the water race eventually. And a comment from Lisa Bennett saying, well, in the wider Rapper, they've got a group of people who particularly are looking after those things. Anyway, so my view is that, you need to pull back from this idea of just getting rid of them. Let's co-design a management regime, bring in the expertise, experience of farmers, council, mana whenua, ecologists and community who may wish to help maintain and expand these values to be the guardians or kaitiaki of these precious values. And I keep sort of reiterating the fact that these are visible, one of the last visible remnants of our original nature left across the plains. So we should save all the stock water races, enhance what we have and make our natural heritage even more visible as we travel across our landscape to give truth to our clean green image and to the marketing of it. And there are opportunities for not only preserving what's there, but also adding to that, planting more, increasing the border buffer zone, providing filtration and wetlands, shelter belts and hedges as well. And as I say at the end there, I'm very happy to help be part of that further ongoing discussion to work out how to best sort of deal with it. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation too. I have a question from Councillor Wilson to start with.
I've asked this of a few people this morning, but it's quite good to hear your thoughts on it. Would you accept there may have to be some closures and the loss of biodiversity to allow the transition of other protected, environmental waterways? So if we have to shut some others, it's sort of a transition. We can't keep them all open, but shut some and then improve others. So you may lose an eel here, but you'll gain two somewhere else. Would you accept that?
Well, I'd want to see what the arguments were. I mean, you say that in order to preserve some, you'd need to destroy others. We're at the bottom line here. We have lost everything except these. When do you draw the line, or do we just keep constantly, death by 1,000 cuts? And that's the situation we're in. I would argue, without seeing a very cogent argument, that we've got to draw the line now. Like I say, I've been arguing this for decades, and the attrition has continued. So, one has to call a halt at some point. Otherwise, we just keep losing more and more. The more we lose, the less viable the remnants are, because every single site has got some unique feature. It's got another species that doesn't occur in all of the other sites, for example. And so it's only the cumulative effect of all of them that ensure that you've got a critical mass of these habitats. It's not just the eels, it's mudfish, it's kura, it's a whole lot of range of invertebrates, and it's a whole lot of plant species, of course, which, as I mentioned earlier, some of which are quite rare and endangered, and the only remnant examples of them are in some of these water races.
Thank you. I've got a question from Mayor Neil Brown.
Thanks, Colin, for your submission. Are you aware that these water races go dry sometimes throughout the year because there's lack of water to put in them, because their springs run dry that feed them, and whatever's in their aquatic life dies because there's no water?
I am aware that this has happened, and I suppose there's some difference between those that are fed from the major rivers, which provide continuous water supply, and those that, as you say, are spring fed. And again, I don't have the specific details about which are which, and what the current effect has been on those where certainly the in-stream life may have died. Of course, some of them, which have like these mudfish in them, they can sort of hibernate in wet mud, for some time between flooding events. But I mean, I guess it goes back to my sort of final statement about having an informed, evidence-based conversation, with various parties that have got that knowledge, including the farming community who have, been managing and looking after these in the past. So, yeah, I mean, look, when I say sort of, draw a hard line, I mean, yes, there are some areas which there are no values left in them, but it requires, a better understanding by the community too, and not just sort of spray them all off and eliminate, create a sort of scorched earth effect, which I've also seen. So having, a stronger sort of more holistic policy about them, I think, is called for, and this requires sort of a wider conversation. So I guess I'm sort of just hoping that it won't just be sort of like a tick or cross sort of decision, but it needs to be a more nuanced kind of outcome, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if some of these races need to stay open, which farmers, who generally go across farmers' land, don't want them, and we have quite a few have told us they don't want them, they want them turned off. In your view, is there a way we could compensate the farmers for having the races on their land when they don't want them?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's a matter of why they don't want them. Is it because of the cost of maintenance that falls on their shoulders, or is it because it's interfering with other developments that they plan? Again, case by case, I suppose. I'd be very sort of bothered if, it's thought, oh well, okay, we'll keep some and let the others go. As I said, we have lost so much, and really we're at a bottom line. I would sort of argue. Now, I can't argue every single individual case, but I suppose it needs to be in the conversation so that people are aware of the importance of these, and so build their expectations around that. And as you say, if there's a need for some sort of wider community, compensation, or even having a wider community interest. I mean, I know there's strong conservation interests in Ashburton, the Forest and Birds Society, for example, many of whom would probably stand up and be willing to help, with maintenance, with weed control, or whatever it might be, to help look after these precious locations.
Thank you. That's all the questions. Colin, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry I couldn't be there.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Our next submitter is also coming in via Teams. Graham. Is he? And his submission is in volume 1, page 707. And look at that. It's magic, isn't it? Hello, Graham. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you as well. I'm Liz. I'm chairing this session of the hearings. We have, we're a wee bit running a wee bit early, would you believe? But we have your submission in front of us, and you've got 10 minutes total, so roughly sort of 5 minutes for presentation, and then we'll take questions from there. So you're welcome to start your presentation.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name's Graham Closey. I've been the president of the Mid Canterbury Aero Club for about 3 years. First, I'd like to recognise the working relationship that the Ashburton District Council has had with the Aero Club over the years. We've previously worked together quite well to manage operations and changes going forward with the airfield. Since 2023, there's been a number of changes to the landing fee structure, and another change is being considered this year. Over that time, the council has elected to exempt us from landing fees just because of the place that we hold on the airfield. I did some research for this presentation, and having a good look at the adopted 30-year airport plan, and reviewed some of the deliberations the council made online. So, first thing, there was a remark made that flying isn't a cheap man's sport. So I'd kind of like to challenge that a little bit, and I'd kind of like to redefine the club as being the group of people. It's the members who actually make up the club and maintain the airport, as we are contracted. We do have the contract for the mowing the runways and other airfield maintenance. So the club has paid, I think we heard it earlier, about $20,000 a year to carry out mowing and other bits and pieces on the airport. It includes some windsocks and other bits and pieces too. We're able to maintain those low costs just because of the volunteers who do spend their hours out there on the tractors and mowing the runways, repairing the windsocks and that sort of thing. Many of these volunteers are in fact retired and have had an aircraft their entire life. So quite often they keep it just out of nostalgia, almost like you'd keep an old car in your garage. And they really only fly, as they get into their later years, they really only fly on the really good weather days and just to keep that connection with the aviation world. And they also have that old school mentality of looking after the airfield and just the general know-how, which helps us continue that maintenance contract. And then we have the other end of the scale, which is the young pilots who, we have a few teenagers who are just out of school, or they might still be in school, and they go out and work and they make their money and they scrape together what they can, and then they come and fly, and that helps them continue on their flying dream. So over the past 2 years, the relationship between the council and the Aero Club and the users group, I'd say, has been degraded a bit. It did start when the council first introduced the new touch and go fee, and also let us know that the annual landing fee was coming to an end. there was no consultation of these changes, and there was quite a bit of backlash just in regards to safety and sorry, what I'm up to. And the reality is that council inadvertently decreased the revenue from aircraft that are coming and going, because most of them come in, do a single touch and go and carry on. That's quite common for a training exercise. And so that aircraft will come in, do one touch and go and leave. And whereas before you'd charge a full $10 fee for that touch and go, you actually reduce it to $3. And so it sort of makes us look upon it a little bit sour, just with how that went, because the locals are the ones who actually do the most touch and goes on the airfield, and so we were then burdened with quite a lot of that cost because suddenly our home airfield becomes very expensive to do touch and goes, which is a critical part of maintaining your practice and your currency when you're flying. What I would say is I'd really like to open better lines of communication with the council. You might be surprised, but we are actually happy enough to maybe pay some landing fees as a club. The reason behind that, I guess, is because the ones who do benefit most from us not having the landing fees, they are the ones like the students and the small amount who do continue flying our aircraft. Now, quite often students, they do move on, but it's when you give the club 0 landing fees and then charge quite high rates for the rest of the users on the airfield, it's the rest of the users who are actually doing the mowing and that sort of thing. So again, it comes back to that kind of needs to be fair for everybody and sort of reasonable, because there's only a certain price point you can go to before people start turning the nose up, pretty much. And yeah, so essentially, yeah, again, what I'm getting back to is it has been like this new proposal is quite the increase for the touch and go fees. Again, it comes back to it's going to be $30 an hour for anybody doing touch and goes. Essentially, it's 20-minute blocks. And one of our main concerns is it does encourage quite a bit of rushing for those in the circuit. When you set up 20-minute blocks, I guess you could say it's kind of like if you parked your car and then you don't want to get that extra $10 fine or whatever, so you'd rush back to your car to stop getting that fine. It's similar with that. So I did make mention of it in our written submission. It's just when you set up these 20-minute blocks, you might want to get back on the ground inside that 20-minute block, and that encourages rushing, which is something we definitely don't want to encourage. So again, I'd refer back to the airport 30-year plan, which the first goal, or the first value, should I say, was safety, and it said safety. So council will have regard to safety in all decisions relating to development and management of the airport. And so that's where the sticking point is. It's written in your development plan, but there was no risk assessment done before you implemented it last year, and there hasn't been, well, to my knowledge, there hasn't been one done this year. The other one I'd like to point out is that the movements is a bit of a tricky one, because the the Mid-Canterbury Aero Club has had quite a resurgence in the last year. We were quite low. I'm just trying to find the number, but I think the number of movements we contributed last year in February, I think it was just below 70, and then this year we're up to over 220. I know it's not a static, not a single line, and so again, what I'm getting at is your overall numbers. Your overall numbers are being propped up by the growth in the club, I guess you'd say. So I just kind of wanted to point that out as well. Otherwise, again, just reiterating, I don't want, the club doesn't, the users of the airport don't want to have it for free. We know we have to pay something. It just needs to be it needs to be close to the market rates. We can't, if we set our bar in Ashburton far too high and there's an aircraft that comes in, needs fuel, and they look at us or touch and goes or whatever, and they'll choose Timaru or Rangiora over Ashburton because it's a price point. So yeah, that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much. I'll go to questions now. Calling, anyone got any questions there? I'm just looking at your submission. So you're proposing, if I've got this right, 200 per annum per aircraft for a bulk landing fee, and you're looking at $12 per landing for individual. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So that $200, that'd be for private aircraft owners that are, well, whoever wants to buy it, essentially. And that's what we look at. It also lowers your administration costs too, because you don't have to send out a invoice every single time an aircraft lands. So that kind of creates a benefit. I mean, the Mid-Canterbury Rail Club, if we were to get into that negotiation and talk about if we were to pay landing fees, then it probably would be higher than that $200, but again, that's probably a little bit too narrow a scope just for this part, I guess.
Thank you. I've got a question from Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I was probably going down the same track as you, actually, Madam Chair. But we've had quite a few submissions from interested parties on the fees. So basically, you're endorsing the proposal prepared by AOPA and the Ashburton Airfield users. So what's listed in there is basically what everyone's after, isn't it?
Did you hear that?
What was was there a question? Sorry. I
was saying basically you're endorsing the proposal was prepared by AOPA.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So what's listed in there is what you're also endorsing.
Yes, yeah, there's not really a lot that I can go over. I mean, we've all put that together, and yeah, we've sort of met you in the middle. I mean, it does include an increase in bulk annual landing fee. So we have tried to be realistic. We know we know the council does want to increase the revenue from the airfield, but again, it does come back to there's only so far you can go before it goes, before you go backwards, I guess you say, with less movements and that sort of thing.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Wilson.
I could go and work it out from the numbers, but obviously you will have done that. What change in revenue from landing fees would that be compared to what the council was proposing? Because obviously there would have been some numbers you would have seen. And how much difference in dollar terms is it with your potential $212 and the one that the council had proposed? Have you worked it out?
I don't know that off the top of my head. So were you asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know those exact numbers off the top of the head, but again, it comes back to it's really quite hard to know exactly how many movements you're going to get in a year, and so we've gone for market rates. In that proposal we put what similar airfields around New Zealand have done, and so that's kind of what we want to do. We just want to make it similar to everywhere else. Again, it comes back to you could make landing fees $100 per landing, but no one would come and land, would they? So that's kind of the extreme, I guess. But yeah.
Thank you. I've got a question from Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Graham, for your submission. With your proposal, you don't have a touch and go rate. Is that deliberate?
Yes. Well, so I think in that proposal we looked at making it an hour block, a 1 hour block for that landing fee. So yeah, which is how it is. Instead of the 20-minute fee, the 20-minute touch and go fee, it's just 1 hour fee, and then the next hour comes along and you can do another touch and goes.
Great. Thank you very much. It looks like that is all for questions. Appreciate your time and coming along and making your submission to us. And we will be deliberating next week.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Now our next submitter is due at 2:40, Julie Luxton. Do we have someone else?
The next person,
Sally. So Sally, we'll bump you up in the line if you're happy to come and speak to us now. Sally is from the Upper Rangitata Gorge Land Care Group, and her submission is in volume 2, page 735. So we'll just take a wee minute to find that. And
I bought a handout.
oh, that's lovely. Yes, you do the handout. We'll find this in our booklet. I'll take. Oh no, just one here. That's fine. Good enough. I've lost my page. So you. Oh yes. If you'd just like to turn your light on, you can both come up to the front desk if you would like, and just turn the right-hand button on for the speaker so that everyone can hear us at home.
Right, well, I thought I'd give you a handout so that you know what we're talking about, which you probably already do. Look, the second photo on the front page below, that was actually taken on a community spray day where all the local community up there, mostly farmers, get together and they spend time spraying weeds out in the riverbed. And I should have just put the photo in of us spraying weeds. I just thought that photo was so good I'd put it in. But if you turn over, this shows the progress we've made, even just from 1918, which is the bottom photo. Sorry, 2018. God, I'm not that old. 2018 is the bottom photo down in the Potts River, below the bridge, and then above is this year. So that's the river is actually. Well, let me start from where it go. Look, I've only got 10 minutes. We have an agreement dating back right to about 1991 where all of the agencies, the government agencies in both Timaru District Council, Ashburton District Council, Fish and Game, all the farmers up there, we all got together and made a commitment. And that was that we would all commit financially every year to address the weeds in the riverbed. And the point of addressing them isn't just to have it looking like this, which is unlike most other rivers you'll ever find in New Zealand or anywhere. But it's also to protect the migratory birds that nest in the riverbed. Look, this is an amazing landscape, and it's an amazing story that we have managed to not eradicate the weeds, but we have them well under control. The unfortunate thing is that we can't ever stop. If you think back to this photo with that sort of weed there, and they were not large weeds there, but the seed is there for a long time. So we would love a 10-year commitment from you, and I totally get that you would be hesitant. It has happened before, though. I was here, I think, 2 10-year district plans ago with Roe Ackland, who now is not with us any longer, but we were actually offered the 10 lots of 5,000 all in one go. It sort of took us a little bit by surprise. But so there is a precedent there where you've committed for that 10-year period. It's just your plans will change, your finances will change. I get that. But all we're asking is that you try and circle it in your district, your 10-year plan, so that it's in your thinking, and that we've only ever charged 5,000 to each district council, and it's not a huge commitment, but every bit that we get adds up, and we can do a lot for our money. We don't, none of it's spent on administration or anything, it's all just spent in the riverbed. And plus we do volunteer days in the riverbed. So, have I covered it all?
I think so. The main
you just need to turn your microphone on, thank you.
The main focus for the group is to keep the Upper Rangitata River area as clear of weeds as we can. and that helps with the I can't think of the word, the endangered bird species, and there's been quite a bit of predator control done in the riverbed as well, and it's just keeping the status quo as much as we can.
But, you know, we are making quite a lot of progress. We haven't gone backwards. We're making a difference. But there's always another weed, unfortunately. So we started off with just broom and gorse, and now it's, you know, false tamarisk. We have particular willows that crack willow that we like to get rid of. Lupins. You know, there's always more weeds, but we take care of them. So.
And it is an amazing landscape.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you have been up that far, but if you drive up to Lake Clearwater and carry on up to the Pots in Erewhon, it's just amazing driving through the Hekaturi Conservation Park, through the beautiful golden tussocks, and then going down the Potts River and the whole landscape opening up in front of you. It's a really, really good tourist recommendation for visitors and locals alike.
And to be fair, both Timaru District Council and Ashburton District Council, we bring you both in because you are, of course, on opposite sides of the river. But in an awful lot of publications that come out, we're there, you know, in whatever picture you put up there, you know, it's one that is used often. And of course it's used. It's awesome. This is an iconic braided river system that it is world renowned. It is amazing, and we're so proud of it. So that's all we ask. You could perhaps ring fence, you know, that 5,000, or if you would like to offer more, we'd happily take more. But
we're also very, very careful that we spend the Ashburton Council money on the Ashburton side of the river, and the Timaru Council money on the Timaru side of the river.
And the only other thing is that it is an exceptionally well coordinated program. We have a fellow, the name of Pete Caldwell, and he is actually a contractor on behalf of Boffa and they do Lynn's work, and he coordinates it all. So we get given our area that we look after in the riverbed each year, and we've actually had the pots for the last 3 years. So we're pretty proud of the way it's looking, actually. So, you know, it is probably one of the more coordinated working together programs of conservation that you will find anywhere. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. That's a really good overview. We'll take questions now, and I've got one from Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Yes, I did read your submission, and I thought, these people don't seem to be asking for any more money, so you're looking to maintain the $5,000, is that?
Yes, look, we've never asked for more than, we started off with that commitment of 5,000, and for some reason we've never asked for more. You know, we will be happy with, you know, that $5,000, but if you can stretch it, then that would be wonderful.
Per year.
Per year, yes, not in total. A question from Councillor Mackle.
Thank you, ladies. And yes, I am up there quite regularly. My daughter works on Erewhon. And I personally don't believe there's a better place in the country, scenic-wise. And a real credit to you with what you've done up there. Question is, do you keep a record of the hours with the volunteers up there and the costs that you've spent annually up there? And my third question is, whose side of the river looks better? Ours or Timaru's?
I'd have to say that the Timaru side looks better, and that is just the nature of the farmers on that side all have the front of their farms facing the river. So, and they get out and do a lot of work in the riverbed from their side. On the other side, you know, you've got a lot of hill country in front, like Mount Harper, and so it's not easy to access. So we get over there, And pots has always been a seed source, so that is still a seed source, and it's something that everybody's working on. Yes, we do keep a record of all the money that is spent. We have got extra funding at the moment through a Jobs for Nature 4-year program, and so we've had $50,000 from the Department of Conservation to go into the weed control. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it's also 50,000 that DOC now aren't putting into the program, so it's just been rearranged and we have control over it. And this is the last year, this year, of having that funding. So, yeah, it's going to be quite a lot tighter from now on because there has been a little bit more money going into the weed program. But we're also in a space where hopefully we can, we won't be able to get round everywhere every year, but we will be able to manage it, I hope, and visit everywhere at least biannually. Yeah, there's never enough money, but that's the reality. Yeah. So did I answer all your questions?
Yes, you have very well. Apart from the hours, do you
Yes,
have a rough idea of the hours?
We do, because it's something that I usually do at the end of every financial year, so I should have it on me, but I haven't. But
no worries.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it is a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
understandably so.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got another question from Councillor Brahm.
Thank you, ladies. Are you working yourself there, or you've got people helping you? Because it's a big area.
Oh, we have a contractor, so any of the money that you provide will actually go to employing a contractor to get out there and cover ground. Our community spray days are just voluntary days where we get out, but it's amazing how much country we can cover in 4 hours or 5 hours that we're out there if we've got 10 or more people. You spread them out in a line. It is daunting though, because it is a very, very large area.
Yes.
But DOC, LINS and ECAN, they will combine their funding, and they also employ a contractor to do all of their work. So, so we do. We don't do it all ourselves, no.
Well done.
No.
Thank you.
I just have a question. So at the moment, are you applying every year to Council's biodiversity grant?
And so that's why we're here. It's just to really, obviously I get that we need to report back to you every year. I totally get that, but it would be so good not to have to apply every year.
And have you been successful every
Yes.
year?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. A question from Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and we do.
Very,
so
very
appreciate
good.
it.
So we've just launched our biodiversity strategy. If you've seen, are you aware of that? Because obviously that ticks into, that's what the council's decided where it wants to go over the long term. So just, are you aware of that? Because
I'm not sure that I am. No.
we'll make sure you get a copy. Yep.
Okay.
That looks like all the questions. Thank you very much, ladies, for coming in and submitting. We're deliberating next week, and that's live streamed as well, so you'll be able to watch that if you've got 4 days in a row spare. But thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much
Thank you
for
for
your time.
hearing us.
Yeah.
We have Julie here. Julie, we're running a couple of minutes early. Are you happy to come up now? So Julie's submission is in volume 1, page 1053. So we'll just get your submission up. If you can turn your the microphone on, it's the right hand button, I think.
Right hand button.
Yeah, and roughly about 5 minutes for presentation, and then 5 minutes for questions, so 10 minutes all up.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Okay. Well, thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say to Mayor Brown and councillors, congratulations on your interaction with the public on looking for submissions on the long-term plan. I think you've done a really good job, which is shown through in the amount of submissions. I think that's really good and healthy, so well done, Council. Today I wish to talk about Balmoral Hall. I think I put a few things in my original submission, but it's really Balmoral Hall I wanted to talk about, and the retention of this historic and well-utilised building. I believe, in my view, that you should sell the Polytech buildings and land, but retain Balmoral Hall and the land that it sits on. And here's my points to why. So point one, the hall sits, I believe, on reserve land and has 5 protected trees around it. I don't believe you should sell this community asset. If you were to, the protected trees and the reserve land would, I'm picking, make it, would devalue it to any developer. I don't know, it's just my thoughts. Point two, Balmoral Hall is a historic building, not only historic, but it's quite unique, especially with its sprung floor. It also has a huge social value to our community. I am a member of Historic Places Canterbury, and we consider that this hall should be included when the update is done on the schedule of heritage items on the council plan. This was last adopted, I think, in 2014. So with the RMA, we are running behind. Point three, the building is used by the community 6 days out of 7 each week. It has been used continuously for dance for many, many decades, and I'm sure some of you will have children or grandchildren that have probably danced in it. To me, it would be criminal to demolish this building. It really is quite an amazing building, and to be historic and to still be used like it is. And of course it's made all those many, many connections with people, as you've probably been hearing stories about. I used to bowl there, I used to dance there, the Bird Cage Club, and there's just so many stories out there. Point four, the poor condition of the building is entirely due to the lack of maintenance. Some might title it demolition by neglect, and I think that the council has owned them and been responsible for maintaining the building. Really is quite appalling that it's fallen into this state. Point five, council has been telling the public that the estimated cost to repair or improve the hall is $1.3 million. The users of the hall, the dancers, have made it abundantly clear that they don't want a gold-plated hall. They just really want the roof fixed and somewhere perhaps with a bit of heating. I could say more there, but I'm not going to. The well overdue improvements that could be done to the hall could see it increased and used by other users. And I think one point would be the line dancers that used to dance there. And I'm sure there's others that would use it as well. Point six, council created plans to put a dance studio in the EA Networks building. Council estimated that out at $300,000. However, council never consulted with either of the 2 dance teachers who currently use Balmoral Hall, that being Jessie Thompson and Charmaine Craig. Both Charmaine and Jessie have said to me that they would not find the small space at the EA Network suitable. So I just question why plans were drawn up without consulting with the people that may be going to use it. That could be considered a waste of ratepayers' money. Point seven, can we not just accept that there is some cost involved for the benefit of keeping Balmoral Hall? Community always does this with the likes of the swimming pool, the gym, the courts at the EA Networks, the library, playgrounds, pavilions, gardens, domains, a massive infrastructure that we already have, maybe the dog parks, I don't know if they're included in that. But there is just some cost involved in providing amenities for the public. Yeah, so again, I encourage you please to seriously consider keeping Balmoral Hall and upgrading it to a state that people can use it and it can live on into the future. It is a very special place. Yeah, so thank you for your time.
Thanks, Julie. I'll go to questions now. Does any councillors? We've got one from Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for coming in. You mentioned about some improvements into the hall, because obviously historic, do you mean just leave it as is and rebuild the monastery as it was 100 years ago, or when you talk about improvements to the hall, what would you mean like that?
The improvement? Well, I think obviously it needs a new roof. It needs to be made watertight. That's probably something that should have been done some time ago. And there is some damage in there that needs repairing. I know Charmaine had said that she felt the electricity was a bit dodgy and they're still using a coin. But in effect, they don't, as a dance group, don't need a lot of heating because the girls are moving and dancing as well. To me, I read through what was sent out to us as historic places, Canterbury, on the costings of the 1.3 million, which all seem very top-notch. So maybe we just need to bring it down a bit, or maybe it can be staged over time. Obviously, the roof is the first thing.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
So where did you get your information that there's a spring floor in the hall? Because we've had Charmaine say that she actually believes that it's not.
Oh, I don't know, Phil. That's what everybody's always said to me. I can't think of the lady of her name. That used to dance there. Sorry, the name's not coming to me.
That's okay. No, that's
Because
cool.
they've danced there for a long time. Do you want me to do some more digging on that one?
No, that's fine. It's probably not that
Yeah.
important. Just, it has been bandied around and it may not be factually correct.
Okay.
Another question though, if there's a new roof and some heating and what have you, what do you see happening as far as rental goes?
I think you've got to be realistic. I work out of the senior centre and I think our rental for the big hole is somewhere around that $25 odd an hour. So I guess you have to look around and see what else is around to make it, competitive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Julie, I've just got a question, and it's actually on what you wrote about the Timwell pool, and you've said here perhaps community buy-in would make it more viable. So how could you see that working with the Timwell pool?
I probably put that, Liz, because I remember someone saying at a meeting, council has health and safety regulations which you have to adhere to, which are of a very high standard, and I understand that. But maybe if the community could somehow buy into it. No, I'm not sure on that, Liz.
That's all right. No,
I was just throwing that in there.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Yes, sorry.
Give us something to think about.
Yeah.
Councillor Brandt, you've got a question?
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Just a question. You're talking about the bottom wall. If that can't be done, what about the Timwell Hall? If we can't restore, or it is too expensive or whatever, why not using another hall? We've got halls around the district.
So, sorry, you were saying use. I'm a little deaf sometimes, Bram. To use another hall.
Yeah, use the Timwell Hall, for example. Would it, because that is a wooden floor, it's easy to access. Is that an option for a dancer?
Charmaine did say, in all fairness, that if they didn't or couldn't use Balmoral Hall that she would not give up. She would find somewhere else to dance. So maybe that's a possibility that they would look at. But if, to me, in its own right, Balmoral Hall deserves to stay there, especially the fact it's well utilised.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Julie. That looks like all our questions for you, so we really appreciate you coming in today. We are deliberating next week, so you'll hear what our thoughts are on that. Councillors and Mayor Brown, we're going to have an early morning afternoon tea.
Yes, sorry, Madam Chair, maybe we can just get an update from Tony. We're just trying to move some later submitters around, so Tony might have an update on that.
Thank you.
Sure thing, thank you. So if you're able to come back from afternoon tea by 3:10, we've asked the next two submitters to come in early, and we're just trying to do a bit of a shuffle around with those that come subsequent to see if we can move everyone forward slightly in the schedule.
Thank you. So the submitter that was supposed to was due to come in at 3:50, they're in red, so does that mean that they're coming in or not?
Yes, I think we've been able to get hold of them, so they're coming in at 3:20 and Alistair's coming in at 3:10.
So we're back here at 3:10.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Hi, Alistair. How are you? You're on mute, so if you'd...
Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Yep, no, that's good. It's Liz here. I'm chairing this session. We've got your submission in front of us, and so you're welcome to speak to that. We can't actually see you, but we could hear you just then. So if you do your presentation, and then if there's any questions, we'll go to those. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Yeah, I'll turn the camera on, that helps. So you've read my submission, but we don't want the council to waste any more money on water races because of systems that run down. We've not seen a water race ranger on our NMR farm for several years, and there's no accountability for farmers that don't fence off the water races or don't clean them. There's no water agreement, and as far as I know, there is no obligation for the council to supply stock water. Some say water races prevent flooding. That certainly wasn't the case in the 2020-21 flood and even the orange rainfall event last year. All it takes is for one culvert to block up and flooding becomes worse. Also, the banks of the water races are generally that high that the water has to build up extremely high before it runs into the water race anyway. But what I think needs to be done is whether the council opts out of the water races or not, is that what they need to do is conduct a survey and ask all the water race ratepayers whether they want stock water or not, because that's the question that, as far as I can see, has never been asked. And if they do want the stock water races, well, there should be they haven't got a supply of stock water themselves. They should be able to apply for an interest-free loan, which would enable them to get stock water to the boundary. This loan could be paid back over 10 or more years. And this could be a good incentive for farmers to get their own reticulated water supply. And the big advantage of this is that if a farmer works out that they can obtain their own water supply cheaper, they can pay for it themselves, or they can sit back and do absolutely nothing and expect somebody else to pay for it, which doesn't seem right to me. Also, you can drill a well in a red zone for a stock water take as well, which some people don't seem to think is the case. I suspect there will only be a small amount of farmers that will not have any stock water, especially if they have to pay for it, and they may not even, if there's less stock water needed, will possibly be one less fish screen needed. Money from the interest-free loans could come from the possible sale of stock water consents, or even a levy placed on Mar water. There's plenty of water available in mid-Canterbury for stock water. Another option is for the irrigation schemes to use consented unused wells to top up the network and provide stock water. And that would do away with the fish screens altogether. Under the current rules, it is very difficult to irrigate new land, so this water may be more benefit as stock water. If we all work together, we can have a reliable reticulated stock water system rather than putting up with the third world open race system containing a concoction of nitrates, prey residue, E. coli and dead animal remains. I support the council exiting the water races and the closure of the once great water race network. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. We'll go to questions now. Do I have any questions? One first from Councillor Wilson.
Afternoon, Alistair. Some of the races, there's a lot of recognition that they've got environmental reasons. You've sort of mentioned that some need to be fenced off in the back. Would you accept that some need to be left open because of that reason? Because of the pressure from environmentalists and those ecological reasons.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the meaning is of an ecological meaning. It could mean that there's possibly fish in the river or water race that
people want, or I'm not sure what it means, to be fair.
Thank you. Question from Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Alistair, for your submission. Alistair, you obviously don't want the stored water races on your property, so what do you do for stock water?
No, we've got a well that we've got, provided our own stock water, plenty of water available around here, and I realise that we are lucky here, but there's not many places in mid-Canterbury that haven't got stock water available. Even as I said, it's a permitted activity to drill for stock water in a red zone. So
And
there's certainly water available.
And how deep is your well, and how long has it been drilled for? When was it drilled?
Well, we're lucky here at Anamar, we're right beside the river, so it's only about 7 metres deep. And we put that in about 10 years ago, and it hasn't been reliable ever since. We dug quite a big gallery, so it was a low cost well. But yeah, we are lucky here. But there's water available at other farms which we got. We had to drill to 120 metres to get water for a cow shed, so yeah, we're certainly well versed in the stock water department.
Alistair, another question from Councillor Hooper.
G'day, Alistair. Are you comfortable with the 3 years? We had Federated Farmers saying it was all too quick and they were pushing for 10 years.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way. People want water, they'll do it all right. And 10 years to me is just a cop out. I don't think Federated Farmers have been any help to us at all. For the people that want to close the waterways, okay, they've got to everybody, and I suppose it's easy for me to look at it from my point of view. But yeah, 10 years is a long time. To me, far too long.
Another question from Councillor Mackle.
Thank you. Alistair, I don't want to put you on the spot, but just following on with the question with the ecological reasons if races were left open, do you believe the farmers themselves should front the bill going forward on that annually, or paid for the likes of some other group?
Well, yeah, the ecological reasons I'll say I'm not sure about. Whether it's for MAR or what, it's difficult to comment because I really don't know. Nobody's actually expanded on that ecological reason. Is it MAR or is it for native fish or is it for what? I honestly don't know. If it's going to be a water race there, it's going to have to be fenced off, and it's going to be annoying for people that goes through their property because the chances are it's going to devalue their property. So yeah, probably everybody should share in those costs to be fair. Just hopefully that the water race that's got the ecological advantages isn't going through our place.
Councillor Mackle, have you got another question?
Yeah, just as a farmer and as a businessman, would you be comfortable giving that money for that reason? Basically having no return from it.
Well, as long as everybody gives the money fairly, and I think that's where the problem is. You've seen the water race maps, as I've seen them. This used to be a massive network, and the lucky people that have been able to shut the water races down, I think they should need to be contributing as well. If there's money going to be paid, there's a person that's stuck with their water races, and we have been for a number of years, and since we've been dairy farming, we've wanted to get rid of the whole lot. That's 17 years ago, so to be fair, I think everybody needs to contribute a bit to the cause.
Thanks, Alistair. That looks like all the questions. We appreciate you coming on a little bit earlier to do your submission. We've got our deliberations next week and they'll be online as well, so you can sit down and listen to what we come up with. But thank you, we appreciate your time.
Good. Thanks, Liz. Okay. Bye.
See you later. So next we have Leslie coming on with her submission. She's just about to come in. Her volume 2, page 171. Leslie, can you hear us?
Yep, loud and clear.
Good. Oh, yes, there we go. We can see you now. Oh, yes, there we are. So we've got your submission in front of us. You're welcome to speak to it for 5 minutes or so, and then we'll go into questions. And we're being live streamed as well.
Okay. I don't have my submission in front of me because I forgot. And yeah, life's a bit hectic, as you know. I'm sure everybody's is. Yeah, so if I remember rightly, my concern was in the report, it said there'd be provisions made for wildlife. If you can remind me what it said in my report. And then it didn't go on and say what those would be. So
Okay, I'll read what you've written here. So that's under stock water. And it says, keep these essential water lifelines for wildlife in a dry, parched Canterbury plain.
Yeah.
So,
and then it said in the submission, this was mentioned later, but it wasn't. It never went into any detail about it in the report.
Okay, that's all I can give you because that's all I'm reading from your submission. So if you'd like to just elaborate on that, and then we'll go for questions.
Okay, I remember it mentioned something about this was in the report on page 12, but when you went to there was nothing about it. It just kind of reiterated that this would be done, but there was nothing to say how. So that would be my concern, really. Yeah, it's great that you've got that in there, but how are they going to do it?
Okay, well, is there anything else you'd like to add? Or we'll go to questions?
I'm sure that the cost has been written somewhere, and how much it's going to cost us. I remember it's going to cost us quite a bit to keep it open. Would there be any onus on the owner to fill it in, or can we keep them open if we want to? Just thinking of flooding. If we do get a bad flood, it floods. So if they're not there, or if somebody fills them in, will the flooding get worse? That would be another of my concerns.
Are you happy to take a question? I've got one from the Mayor.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Leslie. Just looking at your submission, you talk about floodlights for football at the Domain. Would you like to expand a little bit on what you would like there?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's something completely different. My sons play for the under-17s football for Mid-Canterbury, and we can't go up a division because there's no floodlights at the Domain. There's floodlights at Argyle Park, but to get into the Prem division, you have to have floodlights and a building. Well, there's a building at the Domain, and there's floodlights at Argyle Park. So it'd be quite good if there was floodlights at the Domain, and then the team could go up a division.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Leslie? No, thank you very much for taking the time to come in early and speak to us. We will be deliberating the long-term plan next week, so you'll be able to either watch that online or come in and listen to us, and we're going to go through everything that everyone's submitted to us.
Is there no answer about how they're going to make provisions for wildlife?
So we can't answer questions now. That will be discussed in our deliberations. So the submission process is for us to ask you questions regarding your submission, but we can get those answers during the deliberations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right, next. So shortly we should have Matt coming in, is that correct? And his submissions in volume 2, page 323. still on live stream, but we'll just sit and wait. Pardon? We might go off for a little minute. Yeah. So we've got your submission in front of us. We've read it all. Just get you to turn on the microphone, just the right-hand button there. Just push it down. Yep, there you go. You've got 5 minutes or so to speak to your presentation or speak to your submission, and then we'll go for some questions after that. And it's been live streamed as well. So.
Yep, no worries. So I'm Matt Harnett. I won't go too much into the submission because you guys have obviously got it in front of you, and I'd like to think you have all read it and know, but it's nice to put a face to the submission. It kind of sinks in a bit more than just reading a letter. So I'm Matt Harnett. I put that letter together. This is the second one I've done. In the way of last time I was doing this, I was working in Western Australia in the mines, and I was actually on night shift sleeping, and we did a video conference, so I don't know if any of us were still there then. But yeah, so I did one then for exactly the same thing for the water races, and I just did it by video link then. So did that for 7.5 years, and now back home again. So which is great. So still feel the same way about the water races, and did the time over in the mines to come back and do farming. So yeah, so that's why I'm here. And I think the big thing is it's not just the one thing for the water races for me. There's, like I say, in my submission, there's a lot of different aspects of it. One, like small scale farm, family farm, I've bought into it, want to keep farming. We compete with, everyone in the market, corporate farms, everything, which is fine. It's the nature of the beast. But it's just another expense, to put in more waterways, which then in turn pushes another small scale business out, So New Zealand is getting less and less small scale beef and sheep farms. I want my kids to eventually take it over one day and be able to make a living or have their kids and pass it on. The expenses are just getting so much that, I work off the farm, I'm a manager for an earth moving logging company. It's just another expense to try to put that in. That's a service that's there. It's been provided. I think I put in that it's a service that's provided, and to be taken away is if you put yourself in a position of something else that could be taken away that's a service for you, is to me is not really fair. So that's one aspect of it. The other big one is the life that's in that waterway system, that ecosystem is incredible. So I'll go along, there's eels. As a kid, I can remember going in through there and finding eels. My kids will go in there and find the ecosystem. I just went out yesterday and thought, right, I'll grab another video, which I don't know if I can set up to show you. Within a few scoops, I'd found a native fish, which I took a video of and got up and put back. So for the council to cut that off, what happens to all those native fish, native eels, yabbies, etc., etc., that's their ecosystem. It's not just a stock water race, which a lot of people see it as, is just the stock water race, but it's not. That's been there for, I do not know how many years, so now things have actually made that their home, We're such a country of protect our native species, whether it's our kiwi, whether it's our, everything, fish, everything like that. And whether I'm not saying I'm against it or not, but like on the West Coast, they can't do things for mines for, native snails. So it's no different. This is a native ecosystem in this creek. Just because some people don't use it, we can't just go, in my opinion, right, let's not use this, and all of a sudden their ecosystem, turn it off, and then what do we have? A heap of dead eels, dead yabbies, native crayfish, native fish, all just lying in there, So that I think is a big part of it as well, Like you see that there, it's not hide. Like I've got another video of, like I say, that there if any of you want to see it, it's on my phone there. So that's the big part of it, I think, as well, because like I say, people just see it as a stock water race. Oh, it's just a stock water race, but it's not. The other side of it is obviously, like I've put in my submission, is when we had the floods, like that water race system saved a heap of our sheds and our wool sheds and that, because the water flow come down and followed it and just kept following it. So obviously the water race went from this to massive, but it just still followed that. And that water race has been put there to go those places. Someone gets a water race taken out, first thing they do is, what's the point of it there? They fill it up. The water comes down and goes everywhere. Like, if I had a video of it, I would have loved to have taken it, but it was the last thing I was thinking about in the floods, was taking a video of a stream. But it's just amazing how it followed that contour, you know, and then it all dries up and everything kind of goes back to the way it was, you know. So it's, yeah, I just think if there was one thing, that there was only one box that I could tick to say, this is my argument, you know, and whoever is against it, and I'd love to have that debate with someone that was against it, could have that argument, but with multiple things like that, I think the case of keeping it open is very, very strong in that situation for those reasons, you know, and I'm passionate about it. I'm very passionate about it, hence why I've come down here, and hence why I put that in my statement, and I'm sure by reading it you can tell that I'm quite passionate about it. So yeah, it's something that I think that, you know, a lot of people, it's education, and a lot of people don't probably realise that there's that much going on with it. So yeah, that's just something just speaking off my tongue that I can say, and like I say, just wanted to put a face to the submission.
Yep, no, that's great, thank you very much. There is a photo on here of a freshwater cray, I think you've provided us with, which is good. We've got a question here from Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Liz. Welcome, Matt. Thanks for your submission. Whereabouts do you live in?
Ashburton Staveley Road, 3102. Ashburton Staveley Road, so the top end of Ashburton Staveley Road.
The Green Street area, is it?
No, right up the top
up
of
further.
Ashburton Staveley Road, right up beside. I'm just down from Staveley.
That's fine.
Myself.
And how big's your property?
Just over 400 acres. Yeah.
And if you had no stock water race, is there irrigation?
We don't have irrigation on our property, no.
There'll be irrigation companies around you?
Yeah, I think it was about 180,000 to join up to the irrigation scheme. So.
Or irrigation, yeah.
Just to sign up to it, which isn't viable for a sheep and beef farm to sign up to that kind of money per year, you know.
Okay, so we've heard from submitters for and against this proposal, and which we welcome. And some of the ones who want them closed, they don't want to pay for them anymore. They say they don't need them, they don't use them, but they've got to pay thousands of dollars because they go through their property. What's your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on that is, I'm sure everyone in this room pays for something in their rates that they don't use. Whether you live in the country or you live in the city, there's things you're not paying for. It's part of life. It's part of being in the council. It's very easy for me to go, right, I live in the country, I don't use the street lights. Let's get rid of the street lights. But it's affecting someone else. Every decision that you take away is affecting someone else. So for a farmer to come in here and say, oh, I don't use that. I don't use that. I don't want to pay for it. In my opinion, is an arrogant attitude, because as farmers we're supposed to have each other's back, which in the last few years, like most years know, hasn't been the case. And straight up, I think that's a very arrogant attitude to be like, well, I don't use it, so I don't want to pay for it. It's supporting everyone else, you know. We all pay for stuff in our rates we don't use. It's part of life, you know. If it was the fact that you could only have your rates for stuff you use, the system wouldn't work. That's how the system works.
And what do you do for your house water?
House water, we got a well.
Got a well, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? No, yes, sorry, Councillor Meckle.
That well, Matt, would you be able to get consent to take for stock water out of that?
Very unlikely to get the cost it would be to get consent to do that would be very expensive, and it is very marginal even for house water to keep up with it. So I just don't think it would be a viable enough well to keep up with stock.
Yeah, so you haven't really explored that option?
Well, we haven't dug any further, no, but we've had to try and keep up with it on a dry year, even for the house.
Yeah, and the 180,000 you were talking about, was that for shares to irrigate
Yeah.
on the property?
Yeah, that was the shares to get into
Have you contacted the irrigation companies around you to explore the cost of water connection for stock?
I think that from what I've been told that there is still a joining fee as such. You know, there's still a joining fee. It's not something I've actively looked into. No, I haven't looked into it actively because I would rather keep the stock water race open and think I've got a very good fight to keep it open.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. I'd love, if anyone is interested in this video, I'd love to show at least someone this native fish if they were interested in it.
Okay, to get it emailed through, how will it work?
I think it's too big for an email.
Oh, okay. We'll see if Tony can.
Or I can
shuffle over.
Bluetooth it to something. I can probably Bluetooth it to something. So, or eardrop it, or however you guys want to do it.
See if you can actually, if you turn on your Bluetooth and just see if it's going to pick up one of our systems here.
We'll see if we can do it. We do
Yeah.
have some other submitters waiting, but if this can be done easily and quickly, then we'll go for it. Here we go.
Devices.
Look at that.
Bluetooth on.
ABC21. Is it there?
Yeah.
ABC21.
Try that one. Good we go.
That sounds maybe too much setup as work phone. Can you share if you?
Let's see if try the Blue Droid TV. Just see if it's going to beam up to one of our screens here.
Okay. Can I pair it?
Yep. Pair it.
Can you try again?
Yep.
Just trying the Blue Droid TV to see if we should get. There we go. We've got a Blue Droid TV there.
Pair, do you have to click on pair on that?
That's in the back. Maybe there?
It's
How are we going? Is this?
No.
Yeah, I'll press pair there.
Is it peering to the TV? Yep. Yeah, we might just. Yeah, we might need to turn it around. So.
I think someone needs to click pair on that screen, whoever's got access to that.
Could you try the other one?
This one here?
Yeah.
Good try.
No, it's not a touch screen.
Oh, there we go. There's something coming up.
This one here again.
Okay, we'll see if this works. If it doesn't, sorry,
it's
Matt, we're
connected
going to
then.
have to keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, succeeded.
So that's how it's connected there.
Yeah. You could try to. But it's the Windows system, right? You had on the OS system. We can also try to.
We have got some more submitters waiting, so I think we probably, if you can find a way of being able to email that or send it through to us, then please do.
Yeah, and like I say, it's there's native fish in that there, and I'm confident the Ashburton District Council would not want that on social media. Plenty of native fish, and native yabbies and eels, native eels being dried up in the creek. So,
Yep.
yeah.
No, understand. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, we do have Angela here. Is that? Yes, coming in next. And Erin, if you want to come up and join. So that's on volume 1, page 121. Good afternoon, ladies.
Kia ora.
Erin, you can turn your microphone on too if you want to speak, just on the right-hand side there. Yeah. So we've got 10 minutes-ish total presentation, and then we'll ask some questions. So.
Great, thank you. Kia ora koutou. I'm Ange Mitchell, the presiding member of the Mid-Canterbury Netball Management Board, and Erin Tasker has joined me as our centre manager. Thank you for the opportunity to elaborate on our submission, which supports the extension of the EA Network Centre. I'd like to just highlight the key points of our submission. You have all seen in there that we wholeheartedly support the 3-court extension to the facility. We would also encourage the council to consider the timing of this being brought forward with our competitions at capacity and our community growing. This extension is already needed. Netball in Mid-Canterbury is thriving thanks to the partnership we have with the EA Network Centre and the Ashburn District Council. Our vision at Mid-Canterbury Netball is to bring our community together through the shared enjoyment of netball, and this comes to life each and every week down at EA Networks. We've been all in from the very beginning, fully committing to this facility as our home. We shifted all our operations and competitions indoors, and over time this has allowed us to grow our active recreation offerings and the numbers participating in our regular competitions. Social netball is a really good way to highlight our growth. It has experienced a 4-fold increase in teams in this Wednesday night competition, and we now operate 4 grades. The competition has allowed players to stay in the game longer, giving these participants a weekly chance to connect socially as well as being physically active. Unfortunately, we're at capacity here, and in recent years we've had to turn teams and players away, and this can sometimes be people new to town. Similarly, our Saturday secondary school afternoon competition is experiencing an increase. This comes at a time where participation in retaining youth in sport and recreation is a national focus for Sport New Zealand and Netball New Zealand. These numbers are really encouraging. However, we are now at capacity here too, and teams are having to have a bye this year rather than being able to play and participate each and every week. We're also involved with Active As with Ashburn College, which is a 3-year Sport New Zealand initiative designed to support youth and rangatahi who are not currently active to become active. The intent of this program is to see more young people being more active more often, and we believe this could flow through to community sport. This would also further bolster our numbers. Netball is obviously a majority user of the EA Network Centre facility, and not only do we want the ability to continue to grow as our community grows, we also want to see other sports grow alongside us. We are very conscious of this not only being about netball, but being about being able to see other sports being played alongside us and working collaboratively to keep our community active. The extension would also allow us to host more tournaments and bring wider economic benefit to the region. Currently we host regional tournaments, but with the extension we would be able to bid to host South Island and national tournaments as well. This space would also give us the ability to host televised mainland tactics games. With reference just to the utilisation study, we do hold our competitions in peak times, as that is when our participants and our volunteers are able to play, but we have been very mindful of also thinking outside the square and diversifying our offerings. During off-peak time, during the day, we hold walking netball and no limits netball for adults and now school-aged children. This plays a really important role in the lives of those people participating in these activities during the day. We also offer summer league and holiday programs, and now we use the facility year-round and cater for a wide variety of groups in our community. We look forward to being able to continue to do this in partnership with EA Network Centre and you as the council as our district continues to grow. Mid-Canterbury Netball are more than willing to support any community fundraising, as we did at the time of the initial build as well. Thank you, and Erin and I are both happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Erin, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Angie's covered most of it. I think, yeah, just the main points that we are sort of at capacity at the moment. Yeah, so it's not nice having to, having people, even now we're getting people contacting us saying, am I too late to join a team? And actually, yes, you are, I'm really sorry. And there's a lot of people that are new to town who we, I guess, find it really hard to break into sports like ours because there is just there's no space. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Got a few questions lined up. First one from Councillor Wilson.
Afternoon.
Hi.
Because obviously we spend 20 million, we've got to try and fund it from somewhere.
Yep.
Could netball contribute more? Not so much a capital injection, but more the operational cost, the cost of a game of netball may have to increase. Would that be acceptable, or what do you think's the ability of netball to do that?
I think, look, we'd be open to probably all suggestions. I think we would have the ability to contribute a little bit financially. We would also continue to, I think at the time of the initial build, we had people that were on the committees and the fundraising committees, and so I'm sure we would be able to work with that again. We could sustain, we have sustained a regular increase in court costs over the time that we've been in the facility, and we would be able to build that into our costs. I think we're in a good, a reasonably good financial position as a organisation, and we have good support from sponsors and funders. So it would just be a matter of looking at what we need to contribute and planning for the future. Yeah.
Mayor Brown.
Thank you. There's 2 outdoor courts at the stadium now. Do you use them?
No.
To warm up on, and but for actual competitions, no. We have a couple of times if there's been a reason, for some reason we can't use an indoor one, but no. And I think actually part of it is I think there's a health and safety issue with the pole. The pole in the outdoor court is really big.
It's like a basketball
it's like a
size.
Yeah. So I think there's issues with that, but like we do occasionally, but not for competition.
I think, if I recall correctly, when it was first built, there was 2 courts put out there for overflow. If it ever got to the being full, because back then we didn't think it would be, because we supersized it then, but obviously not enough. So that's why I think those courts were put there. But thanks for that.
Councillor Brown.
Good afternoon, ladies.
Hi.
Just going through it, you've got 145 teams. So basically you're quite a bit bigger than the rugby in Mid-Canterbury, is that correct?
Yeah, I would probably say we're the biggest.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
I don't know, but we have 1,300 participants this year across all our competition formats, and I guess we also look at it in terms of our volunteers and our social connection that they get from contributing. So we would say that we have 2,000 people involved on a yearly basis in our regular competitions. We also have summer league competitions running, and then that's not including our walking netball or our no limits netball for people with a disability. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yep. Another question. It's to do with the Christchurch transition to indoor netball.
Yes.
And we think that if we have netball, all the tournaments will come here. But with that transition, do you think that'll put pressure on tournaments to stay up there than come down here?
Oh, I don't think we're saying that.
Please.
Oh, sorry.
A car, a Honda FJF 564 is needed to be shifted from its parking now, please, but it's blocking someone from the Methodist Church. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
We
Did you get that question?
Yeah, we work in partnership with Christchurch Netball, and I guess over the last few years they have been working towards their new stadium, and this year they're opening that and celebrating by holding our under-16 tournament there. But that is a biennial tournament, so we host it every second year to allow for other things to happen in our stadium as well. I don't think we'd be hosting tournaments every year, but it would allow us to every so often be given that right. And I think, most of those tournaments cycle round different venues in the South Island. So I'm not saying that it would be every year, but as long as we're within that kind of hour of an international or a national airport, we would be able to host.
Question from Councillor Mackle.
Yeah, thank you. How you doing? The poles that are outside on the outside, the outside courts.
Yeah.
The only reason that you said you're not using them is because of health and safety of the poles there. If they were replaced to a proper netball pole, would they be utilised more?
I think what's been a game changer for netball since we went inside is the court and the surface and the impact on people's bodies and the experience of being inside. It has changed I grew up with netball, being outside, being cold, my hands not working, trying to shoot goals. And so it's really changed the experience for young people even, but also that's why our premier players playing on a Thursday evening, our social players continuing to play into their 50s and 60s on a Wednesday night, that's because we're inside. I don't think we would get the same buy-in if we move some of that competition outdoors. Yeah, we've really moved, I guess, because we've moved indoors, it's really taken us to a new standard, and to go back to a concrete surface, I think it would be tough, a tough sell.
Yeah. I understand your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably grew up in the same thing. Playing, I did play netball from time to time for fun.
You've got a question.
Mine was rugby, but rugby seems to be going indoor too. Are we? Well, lots of stadiums.
Yeah.
Are we making ourselves too soft, do you feel? And why can't we utilise more of the facilities around the district that are outside?
Well, I would say that actually because of our commitment 9 years ago to move all our sport and all our netball inside, that obviously the college pavilion and courts were given back to the school, sold back to the school. So we don't have a home, we don't have a base, and a lot of clubs would also find themselves in that position. They don't have a home or an outside facility, and a lot of those facilities are not probably fit for purpose. Some would be, maybe up in Methven, Rakaia, but it would be a minority now, not the majority of clubs having a facility that was where we'd be able to play a game on.
Last question, Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Very compelling submission, Angela. Well done. How many people do you think are missing out on playing netball because you don't have the space? Like you say, turning people away.
Yeah. We probably, we could have added at least 3 social teams to our Wednesday night competition, which is probably 30 people, but then there was others that would have asked.
Yeah, we had, between 2 clubs alone, we had they sort of had 30 players between them that wanted to play social netball that they couldn't fit into teams early on. So yeah, that's.
And I think our clubs realise now that we don't have capacity to add more teams, so they don't go looking for more teams. So who knows, what would open up. And it's not necessarily that we want to dominate all of those courts, but it would allow us to have other sports playing alongside us, because, at times we feel like we do dominate the landscape in there, and we want other sports to be able to participate at the same time as us. Yeah.
I think there's a very, very quick question from Councillor Hooper.
I saw the look that Hamish gave you too, so we'll be quick. Is the 3-court option, is that sort of like I'd love to have that, or is it a really, you know what I mean, is the Mainland Tactics televised games that important, or can we get those extra 30 players doing their thing with 2 extra courts?
Like the Mainland Tactics game would be a one-off, and I don't think it's what drives us. That would be a lovely, idea to have that. I think the 3 additional courts, for us sometimes it's not the fact that, I think just the growth and the future proofing and how long it's going to take us to get to having those extra 3 courts, to have to do it again as our community continues to grow would be another challenge. So while we've got the opportunity, I think, to go to 3 is ideal. But as I said before, it's not just about netball. We want to be able to be alongside other sports, and at times, you know, they probably feel like we dominate that facility. So whether it's us using those 3 courts or whether it's other groups being able to be in there, we also, all our clubs use the facility to train it, or the majority of our clubs would use the facility to train in as well. So they're there on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night training for their Wednesday and Thursday competition. And at the moment, it's really hard to get a training slot. Yeah.
Thank you ladies for coming in. We will be deliberating next week, which will be online, or you can come in and listen. We've got 4 days of that coming up, but we appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much. Our next submitter, we've got Brett here and Peter. HH Wet, Volume 1, page 257. Good afternoon. Hope you didn't have too fast of a drive down.
Not telling.
Thank you. So roughly 5 minutes for presentation and then 5 for questions.
Thank you very much, Council, and thank you very much for some of your valuable time, and congratulate you people on this fantastic building. Heke Hines Water Enhancement Trust is a non-profit community group bringing together agencies to enhance the water systems for our economic, environmental, recreational, cultural and domestic use for the community. HH Wet is funded through targeted rate through the ECAN long-term plan by the district's landowners, Heke Hines landowners. HH Wet has the structure and the operational ability to work with ADC to provide solutions for the stockwater networks going forward. Our goals, our long-term goals are target and protect drinking water supplies, enhance groundwater quality, improve base flows to spring-fed streams and rivers for cultural and ecological values, and improve groundwater levels, storage levels. That's our goals. Brett?
Afternoon all. So just to be clear, while our funding focus is only for the southern part of the Ashburton district, the research that we're doing, the learnings from what we're doing, we think are relevant by and large to the whole district, and we're here to help as we can. The HH Wet submission in front of you, you'll be aware, focused on Decision 4, stockwater delivery. Our submission proposed a transition from a stopwater network to a multi-use water race network that more explicitly recognises the many values that have already been provided by this water race network for more than 100 years. We propose that this type of network and the collaborative approach to develop it is consistent with council plans and strategies. So these include your surface water strategy, your biodiversity strategy, and the consultation documentation. We've seen online and listened to and read submissions from the water distribution entities who you've already heard from, and some other individual submitters. We believe these submissions are complementary to what we are proposing also. Provided the relevant parties can begin the scoping discussions, you'll recall discussions about transition plan over the next 3 years, provided those scoping discussions begin soon and are inclusive, we believe the 3-year time frame is appropriate and realistic. We believe the scoping should include, but not be limited to, the water requirements of different values, the infrastructure requirements, integration opportunities with RDRML and the irrigation distribution infrastructure, the consenting process. We think there will be a consenting process and other legal ramifications, funding obviously, and operations. So HH Wet, as per our submission, wish to be part of this discussion, and we have been preparing for this for some time.
Thank you very much. Questions from councillors? Councillor Wilson.
Be remiss if I didn't ask a question. I note in the submission it talks about main races on roadsides, but it never mentions the rationalisation of the network using all the infrastructure that we've got in Mid-Canterbury to make a fit-for-purpose network. It almost felt to me that we were trying to use, you're talking about using the network as it is and shifting it around. What's your view on that, the rationalisation of the network?
As just said, the integration opportunities are there and real and have been discussed. But for example, a pipe network doesn't offer the same, talking about the Valletta side, for example, doesn't offer the same range of values that an open water stock race system offers. If we're looking on the Mayfield Hines side, a cross race for purely water delivery purposes would be different from a cross race for multiple uses. So hopefully to answer your question, although we may have talked about the main race focus there, that is not an exclusive focus at all.
Another question? You haven't explicitly said it here. Would you be expected to contribute your share to the dollars, effectively, to the obviously the cost of the race is X and we have to fund it from somewhere, and if we have less stock water, we've got to find the money. If it's general rate or stock water at the moment, would HH West be prepared to help with that, to funding the
Yes and no. Where there's a benefit to HH, of course it will have to fund, but where there's a user paid scenario with the existing stock water, if they take off some of those races, I guess there will have to be a user paid by the stock water users on that.
My last question, is that right? Yep. Are you willing to work with all other parties to get this outcome?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? No, thank you both very much for coming in. As I said before, we're deliberating next week, so we'll hopefully make some decisions through that then. Anything else you'd like to add, or all good?
No.
Lovely. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Our next submitter is Selwyn Price from the Hakatiri Multicultural Council, Volume 2, and paid $790. Good afternoon, Selwyn.
Good afternoon.
And you've got your submission there, which has been circulated and read. So, yeah, about 5 minutes for a presentation, then we'll go to questions.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Selwyn Price tōku ingoa. As Councillor McMillan has said, I'm speaking on behalf of Hakatiri Multicultural Council as the chairperson. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking, on behalf of HMCC, all councillors and staff who have made a real effort to get out to the community to invite submissions to the long-term plan. And I think the massive response you have elicited from the community is a clear reflection of the work you have actually put in. In particular, I'd like to thank Councillors Cameron, Hooper and Ellis for presenting in April to the HMCC board meeting and to the Ethnic Leaders Forum respectively. We believe it is important that board members who advocate in this community on matters relating to newcomers and migrants, as we do, and ethnic leaders who represent and advocate for their own communities are well informed on matters that affect them directly. It is important that newcomers and migrants are encouraged to find their voice when it comes to matters of local democracy. This process has certainly made them feel that their voice has been heard and is valued. It is a pity that the latest census results will not be shared with the public until later this month, but we do know from the 2018 census that almost 1 in 5 people living in Ashburton back then were born overseas. And we also know from a district-wide audit of school enrolments in 2023 that close to 40% of school attendees identify with an ethnicity other than New Zealand European. And I'm guessing that council also has their own updated information, probably through Infometrics or other sources. And these numbers, of course, will only increase over the term of the long-term plan. We believe that Hakateri Multicultural Council, working in collaboration with the ADC Welcoming Communities Advisor, is best placed to support these newcomers and migrants who need assistance to help them settle and become happy and productive contributors to the broader Ashburton District community. HMCC has 3 interwoven strands that make our business model particularly strong. First, we have representatives from a broad range of employment sectors. Currently, we count representatives from business, agriculture, health, education and social sectors on our board, as well as a tangata whenua appointee. Second, all of the current board members and the 4 ex officio members have the lived experience of being either newcomers or migrants to this district, while at the same time having developed well-established connections here. Third, our Ethnic Leaders Forum provides an efficient channel for communication between HMCC and various ethnic communities. Further, we have reached a stage in their development where many of those leaders have gained professional development and experience necessary to step up to exercise greater authority. And this has been witnessed by individual ethnic leaders joining our board, moving into paid employment with HMCC, or establishing their own ethnic community associations. For the last 25 years, HMCC has helped to deliver social and cultural wellbeing in this district. Over the last decade or so, this has been in collaboration with welcoming communities, but we have also carried this work on through those recent times when the welcoming communities post was vacant. Through our one-on-one support and group activities with the Newcomers Network and the Migrant Centre, and through the direct communication channels that the Ethnic Leaders Forum provides, we are aware that the demand for this type of service is also trending upwards. Unfortunately, over the last 2 years, the gap between our income and expenditure has widened, in part because we have had increased demand for the services that we offer, and in part because of the increased demand on existing sources of community funding. Recent cost cutting by relevant government ministries such as the Ministry for Ethnic Communities and the Ministry for Pacific Peoples has exacerbated this very difficult situation. And this has led to HMCC very reluctantly having to make cuts to the services we have offered until such time that we can secure multi-year funding. And for this reason, HMCC are asking ADC to consider changing how they contribute to funding us. In the past, we have been the recipients of contestable grant funding. I'm very grateful for it, which has been around $5,000 per annum. But we would like ADC to consider making HMCC a council-funded organisation with a contribution of, our suggestion is $25,000 per annum over the first 3 years of the long-term plan. In return, HMCC will be able to go to other community funders with confidence that our service is safe, and will be able to continue to provide the services that the Ashburton District newcomers and migrants have shown they need to settle well into the community. Having the backing of the District Council is usually seen as a positive factor in other funding organisations looking favourably on our applications. And we thank you for taking the time to consider our submission, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Selwyn. I'll go to questions. Anyone? We've got one from Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Selwyn, what's the total income you get from the 8 funders now?
Actually, I have it here in the report. I think off the top of my head, it's around 69,000.
Okay.
Yes, 69,000 last year.
Okay.
Last financial year.
So your income is 69,000, but your deficit is 21 or 22,000 a year now. So
correct.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
you are short funded. Okay.
Any other questions? I've got one, and I may have this wrong, but the multicultural bite, does that come under a fundraising arm of yours, or how does that work?
Okay, Multicultural Bite is run by a separate charitable trust.
So that's separate.
They are independent from us, although there is some overlap. Thelma Bell, for example, sits on both. We participate with Multicultural Bite, but their funding applications actually compete with our funding applications.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Wasn't clear on that. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much for coming in and submitting. And as I said before, our deliberations start next week. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Ashburton Cadet Unit. Susanna, you're here with a few others. We may need another seat. And submission is on page 347, volume number 1. We'll just get all that up. And Susanna, you can introduce everyone to us and make your presentation, and we'll have a few minutes for questions afterwards.
Are you happy to drive it from here? Yes, good, thank you.
And just move your microphone right over to you so that, or you can move it so everyone can hear, and this has been live streamed as well.
Thank you very much for listening to us this afternoon. I've brought a few of my cadets and our chairperson of our support committee with us. So we've obviously already put in quite a detailed submission, so I just wanted to put in a few more gaps and let these guys have a little speak to you as well, and then answer any questions that you might have. Obviously, the first one for us is we're not asking for any money. So we're not asking for you to spend money on the building that we're in. We know that it's probably seen better days, but what we are looking to become is more self-sufficient as a unit so that we don't have to rely on other people to rent off, like we were prior to the earthquake, which unfortunately kind of set us back a wee bit. So we've been going in Ashburton for 137 years. We can trace ourselves back, so on various formats. And I've kind of estimated that we've had between 3,500 and 5,000 cadets go through our doors, and some of them will stay for a few months and some of them stay for a few years. We currently get between 15 and 20 new ones each year, and try and keep as many of them as we can. So the future for us is that we can have potentially thousands of cadets going through our doors for the community and adding benefit to the community with skills they learn and what they take into the future for them. Okay. Our vision for ourselves, we obviously, in there we had our plan A and our plan B, so we've got a slightly more drawn up version of the one that I had on the submission. So this would be our plan A. Become a cadet and community hub, so we'd be able to support some other groups as well. Not masses of them because we want to make it more about the cadets, but there will be other groups like the quilting ladies who will fit nicely in with us. And this would be using the buildings that the council might have surplus to requirements when you look at moving on some of your building sites, the old council building and the 254 Cameron Street and Balmoral Hall. So obviously that one would be our plan A, would give us pretty much a dream scenario of everything we need and very minimal requirements for us to build and change it up. And you can see there the size of it. So we're residential B where our land is, so obviously we have our own land, and that was 45% coverage that we can do. As you can see, we're about 7 square metres over that with our plan A, and obviously we've got room for scope that we can make the garage smaller, that sort of thing. And this would be plan B, which is obviously our least preferred option because there's a lot more work required to get those buildings to what they require to be, a lot more work on the older buildings. Also, we'd need to put into there a purpose-built toilet ablution block, because there's no toilet facilities in those buildings, unlike the ones from behind the council. And we have just been recently quoted a fairly favourable from a cadet contact and fellow cadets across New Zealand of $64,000 to do something like that onto our site and have it pre-built and moved on. So it's a fairly big number that makes us gulp a little bit. And that's the sizing for that one. So that one would well and truly fit into that 45% coverage. Obviously, our cadets go on to do a lot of different things, whether it's that they go on to careers in the New Zealand Defence Force, New Zealand Police, or just out into the public, into the community. The cadets are always contributing well to the community, and even if they don't go on to become one of those NZDF, NZ Police, those sorts of things, whatever they do and whatever the community they end up in, we hope that they've learnt a little bit about giving back to their community and just assisting others like we do. I'd like to invite a couple of our current cadets just to have a couple of words to you. Hopefully I'm not overrunning my time. Staff Sergeant Gibberties.
Which one is it, the left or right one? Perfect. Good afternoon, I am Cadet Staff Sergeant Brendan Gibberties. I am the current longest serving cadet in the Ashburton Cadet Unit. Been there for almost 7.5 years now. A lot of what I have done has allowed me to represent not only this community but also my own unit over almost half a dozen different activities nationally and internationally within the New Zealand Cadet Forces. I myself have been able to not only train hundreds of cadets that have come through my own unit but also nationally, as I've gone on to staff what we call our promotional courses, which have allowed me to not only be directly helping the development of other youth members of the entire country, but have also allowed me to almost be an inspiration to those as well. A lot of what I've also done has just been in development of the youth, as after I've come up, I've received all this training and now I'm passing it on to the next youth that are coming through. And it has allowed us to not only preserve our values, but also to ensure that those values are being passed on to what has come up and being, you know, a more problematic youth, as you can see today. And what we've noticed is a lot of our cadets that have gone through have come out and they've made themselves feel better with what they've done. It also has allowed me to progress in my own future and allowed me to see what I would prefer to do, which is currently within the next 2 months I'll be heading off to basic training with the New Zealand Army. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lance Corporal Madison Kennelly. I've been with Ashburton Cadet Unit for just under 1.5 years now. I hope to go on one of those promotional courses in October, I think we decided, ma'am, which will be the Junior NCO course. So far in cadets, obviously I haven't been here very long, but I've still gone to termly shoots. We go twice a term, I believe. We've done first aid courses, Anzac days, which I personally quite like. But we learn a lot of respect and leadership throughout cadet forces, which is helpful in life in general. What was I going to say? You want to talk about the army? Yes. So when I leave school, I hope to become a doctor in the New Zealand Defence Force. I've wanted to be part of like the medical personnel of New Zealand in general for quite a while, but in recent years I thought about joining the army. And when I realised that I could combine the two, I decided that's what I would like to do. So, that's really all there is to it. But, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, that's great, thank you. You'll just need to, we won't have time for many questions, that's all, but carry on, yeah.
Yes, just to hammer home the point that the cadets, longest serving cadet, yes, but I've been trapped there for 12 years. I moved on so I became area warrant officer while with the cadets, which was a warrant officer for the southern area, which is South Island, and then they somehow roped me into being the chairman of the committee after that. And I can say with absolute certainty that it has a positive effect on pretty much everyone I've seen go through cadets, even if it's only for a couple months or for some of us years and years and decades eventually. Everyone comes out better off for it, whether it's the skills they learn, the leaderships they pick up, all that sort of stuff. And the opportunities provided to them via, so we're obviously just one small part of the national organisation, and in my time I got to go to Belgium, Dubai, Malaysia, Australia, and that was all without my parents or I having to fundraise, not a lot, we did have to do a little, for that to disappear potentially, unlikely as it is, would be a devastating loss in my opinion to the community. And this is sort of our way of shoring up the future of cadets in Ashburton and making sure it carries on for a long, long time, as it has already done.
That's great. Thank you very much. I've got a question from Councillor Brahm.
Thank you, guys. Just a question I've got, I went through it. So where do you want to be? Is it on the side we are now, or you've got a section somewhere else?
We've got our own section. So pre-earthquake we had the Orange Hall, which they loaned or they rented to us, and after a while they kind of put it into a trust, and then the earthquakes hit and we kind of became homeless, and you guys were lovely enough to give us a home, which has been absolutely wonderful for almost 10 years, but it's possibly time for us to go back to our own land, and yeah, some buildings on it would be good. So while we have some money there and while the trust has the money and the ability to apply for grants, it's very hard to build from scratch, whereas if there were some portable buildings we could move onto the site and make them fit for purpose and going forward, then that would give us that ability to be our own bosses again.
I am also a member of the Orange Lodge Hall Trust with two others who are ex-cadets, plus the one fella who's in the retirement home.
No, he's passed away.
Okay, he's passed away now, so it's just the three of us, and they are fully on board with this plan as well.
No, thank you for that. That's great.
Right, I've got two questions, reasonably quick questions, please. Councillor Mackle.
Thank you. I was just wondering what the cut-off age was to join. I was just looking at you all sitting there all nice and straight and looking very
So
very
we can
smart.
take them at age 13 through to 15. We just had exemption to have a 16-year-old join this year because he was from Nepal, so he'd only just been in New Zealand. And they can stay until they hit 20, and then at that point they decide whether they move on or move on to this side of it. So some of them move on to this side, some stick around as a hanger-oner and a supporter, and some move on to what their new career is going to be.
So it's 7.5 years, and then I thought a year and a half, there's hope for me and hoops that slouching in our chairs here.
We're always after new officers.
Go to Mayor Brown.
Thanks. So, I see you're looking for a new home. You've got the land. You've got two options, which is great. Look, done good planning on that. We hold the key, I think. We've got our old council chamber and the staff cafeteria. Option one, which you'd move onto your land. And the other option, I think, is the old prefabs at the end of on the old Polytech site.
Yes.
So that's your two options you're looking at.
Yes,
and you'd like, when we go to disperse them, if we do, you'd like to be in the running for purchasing them.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Lovely. I think that's all. Thank you all very much for coming in. We appreciate it, and we will be deliberating next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have our last submitter for the day. That's Chris Bell. Chris's submission is in volume 1, page 376. Hi Chris, come and take a seat. So we've got roughly about 5 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions after that, and this has been live streamed as well.
Thank you for inviting me here today to present my views to you. What does the 10-year plan entail? I believe it is a blueprint for gross overspending, building present and future debt for our fellow ratepayers. Also the intention of additional debt increase of 44 million over the next 5 years supported by ratepayer funds. How is this sustainable? On water races, or stock water races as it is known, I believe the council should continue the stock water because water is life and it brings life to this great community that we have. Stock life and aquatic life I see this as of cultural importance. For some, this is still their only source of stock water. I don't see how the council, who supports the community, can wish to abandon some through their preferred option to exit the stock water service by 30th of June 2027. On the Balmoral Hall and the old politics side, how have the council come to the conclusion that the preferred option is to sell our community assets? The two assets run at a loss of around $50,000 a year and support dancing and many other community projects. Can the council cater for all the parties that use these facilities at the moment by providing other venues at similar cost? I see this as a fraction of the losses placed on the ratepayers of Mid-Canterbury. From what I've been told from council sources, over $4 million of rates is spent per year on EA networks. That leads me to EA networks, where the council's preferred option is at the opposite end of the scale, building 3 courts at a cost of over $20 million. There are community outdoor courts that our hardy people could utilise and not overburden those that have to cover the cost through our rates. Many I talk to now can't afford our current rates. Would you like to be known as the councillors that burden your community? Those that have little money left to spend at businesses in town, which also won't have income to pay our rates and so on. This leads me to spending on water-based leisure. I'm opposed to any spending on this and EA networks. My option would be to do nothing. I'd like to thank Ashburton District Council for keeping their borrowing well below minimum available. I and many others hope this will continue. The Council's budget predicts that debt will fall after 5 years, but I'm concerned that it will in fact continue to increase after 5 years. We already see the cost of the bridge going up. Please prove me wrong. I also hope the Council don't get too hung up on ideologies like climate change, etc. Thank you. I now await your questions.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any questions? Chris? We've got one from Councillor Wilson.
Chris, you've said do nothing in the swimming in space. As the town grows, do you think what will happen if we get to capacity? So people can't do the leisure activities. What will we have to do that, or how will that?
Well, at the moment we're struggling. A lot of folk in the community are struggling with finances. Perhaps that can be done at a future time. Thank you.
I've just got a question on the Balmoral Hall. So you are happy with a sort of a rough spend of around 1.3 million to upgrade that hall? Do you think that there's been a few suggestions from other submitters on maybe selling the Polytech side of it or selling 3/4 of it and keeping the Balmoral Hall? What's your view on that?
If you just work through, this is my view.
Yep.
If you could just work through everyone else's view and just listen to the community for what they want. I'm concerned that the people in the community aren't getting heard, that's all. Thank you.
No, thank you, fair enough. Any more questions? No, we appreciate you coming in. We have got
Thank you.
Tomorrow morning and all day Thursday where we're having hearings, and then we go into deliberations next week. So thank you. That's the end of today's session. See you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock start. Is that correct? I think it is. Great. Thank you very much.